Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the What If guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Issei was God's first creation? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. The biblical God who created the heavens, the earth, and everything in between was preparing to create one of his first creations. He contemplated making an angel but decided to look into the future first to see who would be his first creation and successor. To his surprise, he saw that it would be a unique blend of several races, and this being would be his most powerful child, possessing a strength unmatched by any other. However, he witnessed the tragic fate of this child during the final war of the factions, where he would perish. Before sealing away the powers of his beloved creation, God resolved to transform him into a normal soul who would be born and live as a human. God was disheartened as he observed the tragic life his son would endure, lacking the support of his own creations. He felt disappointment towards the family of his son, seeing how they mistreated him daily. The supernatural world also turned against his child, which deeply troubled God. He felt betrayed, especially by the angels, and regretted allowing Michael to take his place, realizing how the heavenly system would become tainted by sin in the future. As he watched his creation suffer in Tartarus, he was horrified by the inhumane tortures inflicted upon him. Yet he held on to hope that his son would awaken his true self, rise up, and bring justice upon those who had wronged him. God longed for his son to find happiness one day, even though he knew it would take a long time. Thus, God poured nearly all his power into creating his first child, nearly collapsing from exhaustion. Before him appeared a small boy of about 3 years, with hair as red as blood that shimmered like fire, eyes matching his hair, and wolf-like ears and tail. He had an astonishing 20 pairs of angelic wings. The boy, confused, asked who God was and who he was himself. God embraced the child with all the love of a father, introducing himself as his father and naming the boy Issei, explaining that this was his home, the heavens. He encouraged Issei to come along, promising to teach him how to become a great person. Issei, filled with joy, vowed to be as strong and wise as his father. Years passed as God trained Issei, preparing him for the day he would no longer be present. He chose not to reveal that when he died, Issei would inherit his powers and become human. It was not the right time for such knowledge. The angels were aware of Issei's existence, though they did not know his name, as God had kept it from them to avoid unnecessary commotion. Issei got along well with his angelic siblings, although he felt disheartened when Lucifer left, seeking more power to prove himself stronger than everyone else. As time went on, Issei became one of God's swords, akin to a Valkyrie, but when God saw the prophecy unfolding, he told Issei to forgive him and hoped he would find happiness one day, urging him not to blame himself for the events to come. Lucifer, confused by his father's words regarding his older brother, witnessed the clash of lights and saw Issei transform into a red and black sword with a white aura, disappearing into the air. The last thing he witnessed was the final attack exchanged between the two before God fell. After the war, the angels believed both their father and older brother had perished. Centuries passed since the faction war, and no one remembered or knew of God's most powerful son. New generations thought he was merely a legend, as the idea of someone being half-wolf, angel, fallen, demon, and elemental dragon at the same time seemed absurd. Our protagonist was born as a human, just as his father had seen. He was the middle child among his siblings, with Ryu as his older brother, followed by Yodouy, Anna, Yodouy, Alice, Yodouy, and Elisa, Yodouy. Their parents were Gur Yodouy and Mickey Yodouy. Life seemed almost perfect until the arrival of a red-haired girl and a black-haired girl with glasses, Rias Gremory and Sona Citri. They met the boys in a park and quickly became friends. A few weeks later, they revealed that they were demons from powerful clans, which surprised the others. While Ryu had Drake, the Red Emperor, and Izari had Tiamat, the Dragon Queen of Chaos, Issei found himself without a special lineage. When asked about his own bloodline, Rias coldly stated that he had nothing, and Sona echoed her sentiment. Their family looked at him with disdain, and from that day forward, nothing would be the same. Issei was often forgotten, insulted, and humiliated by his siblings at home and at school. Rumors spread that he was a delinquent and a troublemaker, leading to harsh treatment from his peers. Despite his protests that these accusations were false, no one believed him, as they trusted the popular students, his siblings, over him. Since Issei was the most intelligent student, surpassing Sona, who was known as the smartest in school, he faced constant challenges. His brothers often took credit for his assignments, and teachers believed the rumors, failing him on tests and accusing him of cheating. Sometimes, the teachers even allowed his brothers to bully him before or after class, which made matters worse. Issei had trusted someone he never expected to betray him, his friend and teacher, Isabella. Once a famous model, she had chosen to teach to take a break from her modeling career, as she enjoyed it. She had always tended to his wounds and was a source of friendship and support. However, everything changed one day when her true nature was revealed. In a flashback, Issei was seen lying on the ground, bruised and bleeding from minor injuries that were nonetheless painful. His classmates surrounded him, kicking him while he looked up at Isabella, a stunning woman with purple hair, hoping for her help. Instead, she approached him, slapped him, and joined in the laughter at his misfortune. She mocked him, saying that she could no longer tolerate him and that he was worthless. She revealed that her friendship had been a facade to get closer to his brother, Ryu. She berated him for not being like Ryu, intelligent, handsome, and strong, calling him a pervert and trash that no one wanted. Issei felt his heart shatter at her words, and when he raised his head, his eyes were devoid of life, resembling those of a corpse. For a moment, Isabella felt a pang of fear and pain in her chest but quickly dismissed it and walked away, leaving him on the ground. Issei's brothers and some members of the gremory and Citri factions forced him into Rias's group, where he was made to fulfill contracts until the early hours of the morning. In every battle, he was the one who defeated enemies, yet his brothers stole the credit for his strategies and accomplishments. The supernatural world viewed them as heroes while Issei was seen as useless or a burden. One day, a video surfaced that portrayed him as a traitor working for the Chaos Brigade. He was captured and shown the video, but no one believed his claims of innocence, thinking he had betrayed them out of envy. Thus began the torment for Issei. He was beaten, cut, burned, humiliated, insulted, and subjected to many other horrific acts. They even showed him videos of girls kissing his brother and going on dates, which shattered his heart. The gods and leaders used him as a plaything to relieve their stress, and even Azazel and Ajuka experimented on him in terrifying ways, altering his DNA and forcing him into a beastly form, a red and black wolf with a cold, wild gaze filled with hatred and suffering. 3 years had passed since Issei had been subjected to this treatment, and the factions were struggling against the relentless attacks from the Chaos Brigade. The situation worsened when Rise-bin Lucifer, a descendant of the original Lucifer and leader of the Chaos Brigade, unleashed the 666, known as the Beast of the Apocalypse, leading to chaos on the battlefield. Allies and warriors were exhausted and injured, nearing their end. Rise-bin laughed maniacally, prompting questions from those around him. He referred to Issei, claiming they had made a grave mistake. Searches questioned why they were concerned about a traitor suffering in Tartarus, but Rise-bin insisted that Issei was never a traitor. The real traitor had always been in front of them, the one who had framed Issei. Rise-bin revealed that he could no longer tolerate being surrounded by people who only spoke of themselves, especially those like Issei. The leaders, girls, and the Yodouy family were shocked to hear this. Rise-bin continued, revealing secrets about Kokabil, Loki, and others, stating that they were not defeated by the likes of the Yodouy brothers. They had stolen credit from Issei to gain fame and popularity, as his strategic abilities posed a threat to Rise-bin's plans. He then displayed memories of Issei's life, showcasing his achievements, battles won, and strategies devised, all of which had been stolen by his brothers. The gifts, dates, and letters meant for the girls were taken by Ryu, who often left Issei half dead to claim them. The rumors of Issei being a pervert were fabricated by his brothers, while Ryu viewed girls as mere objects. Gabriel, witnessing the truth, wept for the reality of Ryu's character, and everyone around her realized that Rise-bin had spoken the truth. The creature known as Triedza was now Issei's weapon, which surprised everyone. They wondered why Rizban wanted a human, even if Issei was more than an ordinary human. Issei questioned Rizban's intentions, asking why he desired Issei, the firstborn of the biblical God, the most precious and perfect creation, the elder brother of Lucifer, and the heir to both heaven and earth as well as the supernatural world. Rizban explained that he had not expected Issei to be born as a human, but thanks to the actions of others, that expectation was shattered. Although he could not use Issei as a soldier, he intended to keep him as a guardian pet, or rather, a guardian wolf. The leaders had not seen what he had become. Before them stood a wolf with dragon wings, chained in a cell, its fur blackened from burns that had healed but left dirt behind. Everyone was astonished at what had happened to their hero. The angels were particularly shocked, having believed their brother had perished alongside their father. Rizban had discovered a scroll left in one of the old books that revealed the truth. Rias, in tears, pleaded not to be separated from Issei. Rizban responded, asserting that he would not be stopped from claiming the most powerful being in the supernatural world as his weapon and pet. The Triadza would soon test Issei's strength, but Rizban was confident in his own power. As the Triadza approached the Tartaros prison where Issei was held, it began to destroy the walls. Just as it was about to crush Issei, the wolf spoke, warning the creature not to bother him if it did not want to be harmed. Issei expressed his frustration at being unable to rest in the wretched prison and boasted about having nearly defeated the useless guards. When the Triadza lunged at him, Issei retaliated with a powerful attack, unleashing a dark flame that turned the Triadza to ashes. Everyone watched in awe as the wolf transformed into a giant, towering over Rizban. Issei taunted Rizban, revealing that he had overheard his insults. He vowed to make Rizban pay for his suffering, promising that he would feel the same pain inflicted upon him for so long. Rizban, filled with pride, refused to show fear before the giant wolf and launched a fire-based magical attack. However, when it struck, it barely left a mark on Issei. Issei's eyes glowed red, and a terrifying light emanated from his chest, resembling a fearful face. Rizban was momentarily stunned, but soon he began to scream in agony, pleading for it to stop. Issei reveled in Rizban's suffering, declaring that he was experiencing the pain Issei had endured throughout his life, combined with Rizban's deepest fears. As Rizban returned to normal, he attempted to attack Issei, but the wolf moved with incredible speed, capturing Rizban with its jaws and tossing him around like a toy. When Lucifer tried to escape, he witnessed the wolf's tail splitting into multiple parts, ensnaring him and pulling him in various directions. With a powerful throw, Rizban was sent crashing into a mountain, shattering it. As he faced the approaching wolf, he felt a primal fear, realizing the immense strength of his opponent. He could hardly believe he had been treated like a mere plaything. Issei prepared to unleash a devastating attack, declaring that Rizban would be annihilated. Rizban, in disbelief, cursed Issei, lamenting that he, the great Rizban, would be defeated by a giant dog. Issei, angered by the insult, vowed to make Rizban's death a legendary one, revealing his true identity as a fallen archangel and elemental dragon. As the ground trembled, fiery meteors rained down, swirling violently around Issei. The attack was unleashed, and Rizban's body was left charred. In a final act of dominance, Issei stepped on Rizban, reducing him to ashes. They disappeared and saw how the wolf shrank to the size of a tiger. When they tried to approach, it vanished but reappeared in its cell, ready to continue its nap after dealing with many pests that afternoon. The army of Riz suffered the worst of the wolf's final attack. The factions could hardly believe the power Issei possessed, along with all the revelations that unfolded that day. They undoubtedly needed to hold a meeting to discuss everything that had happened. A week later, after repairing some of the damage from the battle, all the leaders of the factions gathered in the meeting room. Serches, the leader of the demons, Azazel, the leader of the fallen, Michael, the leader of the angels, Yasaka, the leader of the yokai with her daughter Kunu, Zeus from the Olympians, Odin, the leader of Asgard, Hisanabi, the leader of the Japanese gods, Shiva, the leader of the Hindus, Ra, the leader of the Egyptians, and other deities from various mythologies were present. The parents of Rias and Serches, the Citri and Gremory clans, and Valerie's team were also there, along with other leaders from the supernatural world, including Tannin and Opus. They needed to discuss the events of the previous week, as they still could not believe everything Rizban had revealed. They had to use a mind spell to see the memories of the yodouy and confirmed that Rizban's claims about Issei being robbed of credit were true, and that in battle, these factions were often the first to fall. Initially, the leaders wanted to punish them for the lies they had told all this time. Searches expressed his disbelief regarding Issei, stating that he still could not comprehend that he was the first son of the biblical God. Michael shared his surprise, admitting that he did not expect their father to seal Issei away and thought he had perished alongside him. He felt deep remorse for what they had done and believed Issei would never forgive them. They agreed that it was pointless for him to remain in Tartarus if he was innocent. Azazel suggested that since the pillars were false, they should make Issei the new pillar of the factions. Rias inquired about Rizban's statement that Issei was the first son of the biblical God. Michael explained that he would answer that question, noting that for the new generations, the legend had been forgotten as if Issei had never existed. Due to his appearance, no one believed he was the son of their father, as he was created before all of them. Lucifer sought to surpass him, which led to his fall from heaven, driven by a desire for more power and a competitive spirit, especially since his brother possessed the abilities of the Valkyries. Ross interjected, questioning whether it was truly impossible for anyone other than a Valkyrie to possess such abilities. Michael clarified that Issei could indeed wield such power. His bond with their father was the strongest, and together they formed the most powerful weapon in the supernatural world, possessing numerous hidden abilities that would make even the most skilled swordsman appear inexperienced. The full name of the sword was Excalibur of the Celestial Fong, and he was the heir to both the earth and the sky, as well as the supernatural realm. It was revealed that he had the power to defeat the Trihexa, and when wielding the sword, his power diminished depending on how much he wished to unleash. He could control the other Longinus effortlessly without tiring. Everyone was stunned. They could hardly believe how powerful Issei truly was. Azazel remarked that he knew about the old man's actions, which had turned Issei into a human. If he could win the war of the factions, he said with uncertainty, it was a remarkable feat. Michael added that they had discovered something unusual in heaven. Odin asked what they had found. Michael explained that when Issei awakened his powers, their father's chamber opened, revealing a diary that detailed how he created Issei using all his power and taught him to master his abilities. The diary also explained why he created Issei, as he was meant to be his successor, the one to maintain balance in both the supernatural and human worlds. Their father had foreseen everything that was to come and chose not to intervene, despite the pain it caused him. He spent time preparing Issei for the day of the war, and with the last of his energy, he made Issei human. Rias questioned why she had never sensed his power when they were children. Uriel suggested that Issei's power was immense, and although she was a high-class demon, she was too weak to perceive it. To sense such power required deep concentration, which she lacked, leading her to believe he was merely a human. Kiba wondered how Issei managed to awaken his power and break the seal. Odin speculated that to break it, Issei must have experienced intense negative emotions and felt the true nature of each race he represented. He believed Issei unleashed his power when Azazel and Ajuka experimented on him in various ways, and one of the DNA strands must have awakened his true heritage, although he was unsure which one. Azazel suggested it might have been the yokai wolf DNA, as the old man's diary indicated he was created as a wolf, which could have triggered his power. Odin acknowledged that they had clarified how Issei was created, but they needed to address the issue of the deceitful youngsters present. Searches stated that he wanted to ask Drake and Tiama some questions. From the arms of Ryu and Izari emerged the dragon gauntlets. Drake awaited the questions. Searches asked if they were aware of the truth regarding their hosts and everything that had been done to Issei. Drake confirmed that they had indeed known and had warned those fools countless times that the boy did not deserve what was happening to him and that one day they would pay for their actions. Gabriel expressed sorrow, questioning why they had never spoken up, as they could have prevented much suffering before it was too late, shedding tears for the harm done to such a pure soul, especially since he was their older brother whom they missed dearly. Tiama lamented that it was pointless to discuss it now. They would have believed it, and the boy would have suffered even more. Besides, these fools put a barrier that prevents us from communicating with you too. They had known he was the son of a deity. Searches asked when they had known and why they hadn't said anything, his tone serious and filled with anger over the lies and secrets being revealed. Drake explained that at first, it was difficult due to the barrier and the immense hidden power involved. They wouldn't have believed them, and it would have only caused more harm to the boy. It was clear that they were now paying for their actions, especially as he saw the girls looking worn out, their eyes puffy from crying. Drake continued, asking if they had learned anything about him while he was in prison. Searches admitted that he had tried to persuade the guards to release him and bring him to the castle, but things always went wrong. They had repaired his cell, and the guards regretted how they had treated him. They attempted to treat him better, but it often ended with some of them injured or hospitalized. The boy refused to eat the food prepared by the chefs as an apology for their past actions, either throwing it back in their faces or outright refusing to eat, fearing it might harm or poison him. The guards even checked his food to ensure nothing was added, but he rejected all their attempts to make his stay more comfortable, kicking them out whenever they tried to touch him or check on him. He insisted he would rather be dead than allow anyone to touch him. Everyone lowered their heads at the words of the redhead. The meeting concluded, and Searches announced that he would personally go to retrieve Issei in a week. Michael, Azazel, and Odin raised their hands to accompany him, while the others would prepare to welcome them at the castle. They speculated about what might happen to the troublesome trio and how Issei would react to being freed from his unjust imprisonment. They wondered how the academy had fared since his departure and how the rest of the family would cope with the truths about their lineage, especially knowing that Issei had never truly been raised by them but had merely been placed in his mother's womb to be born as a human. The Gremory family and the other girls Issei had been seeing in the castle would have their own reactions, but only time would tell. After the faction meeting, everyone returned to their homes. Searches told the girls they needed to tell the truth at the academy regarding the rumors about the brown-haired boy. They nodded, still saddened by the events of the past few days. Back at the academy, 3 days had passed since the occult club revealed the truth about the rumors surrounding him. Since the brown-haired boy had left 3 years ago, instead of resolving certain issues, they had only worsened. The academic performance and competition results had suffered, as the core academy had won several times thanks to him. However, Ryu always took credit for those victories. The academy and the students believed that without Issei supposedly hindering them, they would win more quickly with his brothers. Unfortunately, they lost spectacularly, as they relied too much on the Yodouy family and allowed them to answer questions. When they lost the competition, everyone wondered how it had happened, as they were considered the smartest in the academy. It seemed impossible for them to fail, especially since they had been stealing Issei's assignments, which had previously given them the best grades. The following year was no different. They lost again, attributing it to stress and fatigue from their first defeat. It was unfortunate for these fools who had egos as large as walnuts. After losing for the second consecutive time, they began to doubt whether they were truly the best. Their confidence made it hard for others to believe they were not. When they lost for the third time, trust in them waned, as they had shown they were not as intelligent as they claimed. When the girls from the occult club revealed that the rumors about Issei were lies fabricated by Ryu and his sisters, the others were initially reluctant to believe it. However, they could not deny that things had worsened since the brown-haired boy had left. His sisters confirmed the truth, even requesting security footage from the director for certain areas of the academy. He agreed, as those areas were the quietest, and he had no reason to review the footage. It was true what they said, as they witnessed Ryu mocking them behind their backs, calling them foolish for believing someone without evidence to the contrary. They claimed the rumors were fabricated because they wanted to be popular at the academy. The girls who had always been friends with or had feelings for his brother were foolish for believing everything said about him. Ryu often avoided his boring assignments, stealing them from Issei or threatening him if he didn't do the work. No one could believe what they had seen. The girls were in tears, hearing the truths Ryu spoke in the video. The boys would regret having hurt the brown-haired student for no reason, leaving him in a state of distress. The teachers would also regret ignoring their star pupil, failing to recognize that he was the intelligent one, not his brothers. He was the one who won competitions, not them. Isabella felt the worst, unable to comprehend everything she had done to her student and friend. She felt ashamed, recalling the hurtful things she had said to Issei to get closer to his brother. Remembering the hurt on his face broke her heart, especially when she thought of how other boys and teachers had looked at her for her appearance, while the brown-haired boy had treated her like a normal person. As a dragon, she had heard the girls talk about Issei and how innocent he was, not a traitor, and how he was the true source of the credit for all the battles and enemies they faced. Seeing all the evidence shattered her heart even more for everything she had done to him. She just wanted her student and friend back and wished to beg for his forgiveness, no matter the cost. She wanted to make amends for all her wrongs, and when she found him, she would ask for his forgiveness and dream of a future together. The girls who had once been involved with him wanted to apologize and be with him, remembering the good things he had done for them and how they had judged him unfairly. The teachers regretted their actions and hoped he would return to the academy so they could apologize. They had adjusted their grades, realizing he surpassed Sona in intelligence and had always been the one to help her in class, while they had punished him for no reason and allowed other students to bully him. Since those days, the academy had been dull and sad, lacking joy, as no one could bear to see each other's faces knowing what they had done to an innocent person. Issei's classmates removed the desk where they had written insults, jokes, and threats, replacing it with a new one, hoping their friend would return so they could apologize and start anew. Despite their past actions, he had always helped them, showing his smile like an angel, regardless of the lack of gratitude or the disdain they had shown him. The kendo girls could not bear to look at their wooden swords, remembering how Ryu had claimed to see the brown-haired boy spying on them in the changing rooms, leading them to attack him mercilessly without any proof. They recalled the time they brought real swords and, upon seeing him in the academy courtyard, had taken the opportunity to strike him down, leaving him in a terrible state. They could only picture the suffering they had caused him and the blood on their weapons. This filled them with remorse, especially since many of them had rejected his heartfelt confessions, laughing at the thought that someone like him could be with them. They wished they could turn back time, and if he were to confess again, they would accept his offer. But they knew that was not possible. They could only wait for him to appear and hope to apologize, perhaps even to become his partner. As for the yodouys, once the parents learned the truth about Issei never being a traitor and that all the blame lay with Rizban and the rumors spread by their other children, they were shocked. They realized he had always had gear blood and was the son of the biblical God, who had given him powers and allowed him to be born as a human to keep him safe from faction wars. God did not want his son to die alongside him and had the power to challenge even the strongest beings in the supernatural world. He had defeated Rizban and his army. The adults could hardly believe it, especially since Issei had always been the one to help around the house, cooking breakfast and cleaning, while the supposed trouble he caused was merely a fabrication by his siblings to punish him. They remembered the times when their children had accused him of stealing money, which was actually Ryu's doing, as he wanted to buy something and had blamed Issei. The parents were devastated by how they had treated their son and regretted their actions, trying to recall something good they had done for him, but nothing came to mind. They thought of happy moments spent with him, but when they looked through old photos, they found none of him, except for one from when he was 5 years old. This realization hit them hard. They had neglected their son for 12 years. They were undoubtedly the worst parents in the world, as the photos only showed their other children enjoying family moments, while the brown-haired boy seemed to have never existed. When the mother could no longer bear it, she went to his room and was horrified and worried to find it devoid of color, a stark contrast to the vibrant rooms of his siblings. The room was falling apart, old and worn, barely containing the essentials. The mother realized that she had never given her son anything, and that room, which resembled a cell, was proof of that. She could only remember the times she had entered to scold or hit him for things he hadn't done. The woman lay back on the bed, crying, trying to feel the warmth of her son. The daughters wanted to comfort their mother, unable to bear seeing her in such pain, but they knew that their attempts would only make things worse. Their father, upon seeing the room, felt the same despair as his wife. When he noticed a book on the desk, he picked it up and discovered it was Issei's diary. As he read, he could only cry harder, clenching his fists in frustration. The diary detailed everything he had done to Issei, and despite the suffering he endured, he had always loved them until the day of betrayal when they saw his emptiness, sadness, and anger. The man stood there, weeping with his head bowed, realizing that their son had been like an angel in their lives, and they had only caused him pain, effectively killing the angel that had been a gift from God. He sat on the bed beside his wife, embracing her as they consoled each other. Meanwhile, in the room of the 4 yodouy sisters, after their parents had expressed their grief in Issei's room, Rias and Aquino entered, searching for something that would remind them of him. They found one of his diaries, which revealed what had drawn him to them, the poems he had wanted to recite, and the dates he had planned with such affection. He wrote that what he loved most about them was not their appearances, but their laughter and smiles, which he found to be the most beautiful. The 2 girls could only cry more as they read through the entries. When they sat on the bed, they noticed a box labeled for them in case something happened to him, or if they ever wanted to know about him. Inside the box was a necklace with a red heart-shaped diamond on a silver chain, along with others of various sizes and charms. A card explained that he intended to give them these gifts on their respective birthdays. They remembered seeing the necklaces in a store and wanting to buy them, but they were too expensive. He had spent his money on gifts they had taken for granted. Rias let out a scream and collapsed to her knees, clutching the necklace and Issei's diary. When the others rushed in, they found her in that state. The only one who responded was Aquino, who barely managed to stand without breaking down, holding the necklace meant for her. Ryu wanted to approach Rias to comfort her, but she lashed out at him, causing him to crash against the wall. Rias expressed her anger, blaming him and the others for everything that had happened. Issei tried to explain that they never wanted this outcome, but Rias demanded to know why they had lied about Issei. As the tension escalated, Alice admitted that they had acted out of fear of any girl getting close to him, following Ryu's misguided advice to ruin his life because they didn't want him with anyone else. Irina chimed in, expressing her frustration that he had the right to be happy and that they had no right to interfere in his personal life out of selfishness. Rias, overwhelmed, ordered them to leave, stating they had done enough harm. The sisters felt the weight of their actions and began to cry, remembering how their brother used to comfort them when they were scared, singing to them and assuring them they would always be together. They were devastated by how they had treated him and the pain they had caused. Issei pleaded with Tayadma, asking her to talk since she had been silent for weeks. She needed someone who wouldn't hate her. Tayadma, however, reminded her that it was their fault, stating that her brother wouldn't understand unless it was through force. She and Drake had warned them that he didn't deserve such treatment and that they would regret their actions. Issei insisted they hadn't meant to hurt him, they just wanted to protect him from being hurt by others. Tayadma challenged her, questioning if they thought that beating and humiliating him would solve anything. She pointed out that their jealousy had clouded their judgment and that they needed to accept the consequences of their actions. Issei felt the sting of Tayadma's words, which were painfully honest. Tayadma concluded that Issei would never be the same person they once knew, having witnessed how he had dealt with his enemies. The sisters were left to confront the reality of their choices and the impact they had on their brother's life. Issei felt a deep sense of regret as she thought about Issei. She believed that the kind and cheerful version of him still existed somewhere, and that they were family. All she could do was apologize. Tayadma, however, was less forgiving. She believed that Issei would not forgive them, as they could never give back the time he lost because of their actions. Tayadma disconnected from Issei's mind, choosing not to engage further. Meanwhile, Ryu was in his room, reflecting on the moments he shared with his family when they were united. He remembered the promises they made as children to always support one another, despite the hardships they faced. He recalled how Issei always smiled and helped him, calling him brother and showing affection, even when Ryu pushed him away. The memories of betrayal haunted him, especially the times he had tormented Issei, recalling the pain he had inflicted and the cries for help that echoed in his mind. Ryu's world shattered when Raizbin attacked, nearly harming them all. He realized that he had hurt an innocent person all along. Initially, he was indifferent, But learning that Issei was the son of a biblical god changed everything. Ryu understood that Issei had always possessed great power, which others failed to recognize. Despite the harm done to him, Issei remained an angel, enduring their mistreatment and helping them when they didn't deserve it. Ryu felt frustrated that someone like Issei could achieve the impossible, while he struggled with envy and jealousy. The rumors about Issei spread throughout the academy, leading to disdain from his peers. They blamed Ryu for Issei's actions, and the hostility from others grew. The kendo students often confronted him, accusing him of lacking honor and spying on them. Ryu endured their attacks, knowing he had to complete his tasks, no matter how difficult. As time passed, Ryu felt the chill of isolation. Friends he once had abandoned him, claiming they thought they knew him but realizing they were mistaken. The supernatural community expressed their disdain, and children mocked him, saying he didn't deserve his titles and was a liar. Women distanced themselves, believing he had ill intentions, while men regarded him with contempt. Leaders of various factions refused to acknowledge him, and the girls who once admired Issei blamed Ryu for everything that had gone wrong. He could only think that the suffering he endured over the past 2 weeks was nothing compared to what Issei had faced throughout his life, especially in Tartarus. Ryu regretted everything that had happened and recognized his foolishness. He longed for his brother's forgiveness and wished to restore their family to its former unity. He held on to hope that the goodness of the old Issei still existed and vowed not to fail him again. Drake noted that he never thought Ryu would realize the consequences of his actions so soon. Ryu admitted he felt like an idiot for allowing things to escalate. He wished he could turn back time and prevent the pain. Drake reminded him that it was not just Ryu's fault. Everyone had contributed to Issei's suffering through their arrogance and desire for power. Issei had always been pure-hearted, and the pain he endured was something that could not be forgotten. Drake urged Ryu to accept that his brother had changed, and the kindness he once knew was gone, replaced by anger and resentment. Ryu refused to give up hope. He was determined to bring his brother back and restore things to how they should have been. Drake wished him luck, hoping that this time Ryu would make the right choices. The next day marked a significant moment for Issei. As he awaited his release, he could hear the leaders of the biblical factions approaching his cell, accompanied by guards. He growled at them, making it clear he did not want them near him and had no interest in their food. They want to poison me like in the past. I told them I only wanted bread and water, that's all I eat. Thanks to them, everything else disgusts me. The chef insisted that Issei could not eat only that, as it could make him sick. They only wanted to help him feel more comfortable before the others sought revenge on him. Issei dismissed their words and actions, expressing that their concern for him was a joke. For 3 years, he had witnessed their enjoyment in his pain and suffering, so he refused their offerings. He warned them to leave before he dealt with them as he had with others who had wronged him, his eyes shining with determination. The chefs and guards fled in fear. Issei finally found a moment of peace, but his dreams were interrupted by the voices of those he did not wish to see. He felt irritation bubbling within him. He thought to himself that he was tired of their presence. In the cell of a certain black wolf with red markings, the leaders of the biblical factions came to free him. The wolf regarded them with indifference, though his expression was far from friendly. One of the leaders nervously greeted Issei, who demanded to know what they wanted. They claimed they were not there to torture him but to check on his well-being. Issei, furious, reminded them that he had been trapped in that hole for 3 long years because of them. He warned them not to treat him like a child, reminding them of his status as the first son of the biblical God. He threatened them with dire consequences if they continued to annoy him with foolish questions. Michael, one of the leaders, stammered that they had come to liberate him since he was innocent and did not deserve to be imprisoned. Azazel noted that the guards had placed a collar on him to control his powers, fearing he might harm someone with his immense threat. He mentioned that without the intervention of a certain phoenix, the guards would have faced dire consequences. As Issei was teleported to the capital of Lily, the people quickly recognized him as the hero who had saved them. They felt guilt for the suffering they had caused him. Some demons approached to apologize and thank him for his past heroics. A child ran forward, crying and wanting to embrace him, but Issei's fierce gaze made the child hesitate. When he instinctively raised a paw, the ground cracked beneath it, a reminder of the power he held. If he had struck the child, the outcome could have been tragic. Issei scolded the child harshly, recalling the times he had been attacked by the child and others like him. He warned that next time, he would not hold back. The child's mother apologized, but Issei was unmoved by her words. He told her to take her child and leave before he lost his patience completely. The woman hurried away, taking her son with her, while others watched in silence, knowing he had every right to feel anger toward them. As they continued their journey, Issei felt like a pet being led around, a humiliating experience. He wished his father were there with him, his tone reflecting his sadness. Upon arriving at the Gremory clan, Issei saw Grephia, the wife of one of the leaders, who appeared to be in tears. Before the betrayal, he had considered her like a sister, but her actions had led to deep disappointment. She had once visited him under orders to inflict pain, and he had vowed never to forgive her if he ever learned of his innocence. In the present moment, Grephia greeted the leaders with respect, but her longing to embrace Issei was evident. As she approached him, he transformed into a dragon-wolf hybrid, launching an attack that narrowly missed her. Everyone was taken aback by the suddenness of the event, as Grephia had only wanted to express her remorse through a simple hug. The lightning grazed Issei's cheek, and it seemed as if the attack was meant to leave her hurt. This was how it appeared, but he returned to his current form. Grephia expressed her confusion and sadness, shocked that the person she considered a younger brother would attack her with the intent to harm. Issei, however, pointed out that everyone knew the reasons behind his actions. He felt justified in his response, believing that Grephia had sought the embrace without considering the past. He confronted her, questioning whether she truly wanted to know why he had acted that way. He reminded her of the betrayal he felt from her and others, who had turned their backs on him due to the foolishness of his brothers and a stranger who presented false evidence. Issei had hoped Grephia would believe him, but when she sided with the others, he realized that trust was a fragile thing, especially with those he cared for. He had expected more from her, but now saw her as just another deceitful creature. Grephia felt a deep pain from Issei's words, knowing they were true. She had only followed orders to hurt him emotionally. Initially, she had taken pleasure in his suffering, but as time passed, she began to feel a bond akin to that of siblings. After the betrayal, however, her treatment of him changed, and she was devastated by the truth of his feelings. She longed for his forgiveness and hoped he would still see her as a sister, promising never to turn her back on him again. But now, she witnessed the hatred he held for everyone, emotions that had been suppressed for so long now unleashed. Issei warned Grephia to keep her child away from him, threatening that he wouldn't hesitate to harm him if necessary. Searches, feeling nervous, reminded Issei that the child saw him as a brother and questioned how he could say such things. Issei dismissed the idea, stating he could never see that spoiled child as a brother again, especially after everything that had happened. The child had only proven to be just as deceitful as his parents, and Issei felt surrounded by hypocrites who had once reveled in his suffering. Meanwhile, inside the Gremory castle, a conversation was taking place among the Gremory patriarchs, the occult club girls, the Citri clan, and other women from various factions. They were discussing how Searches had informed his parents and others that he intended to rescue Issei from the depths of Tartarus. Everyone was excited at the prospect of apologizing to him and making amends for how they had treated him throughout his life. The girls wanted to express their remorse for the past and hoped to reconcile with him, while the yodouy patriarchs wished to see their son and beg for his forgiveness, aiming to restore their family. As Searches, Azazel, and Michael entered, Venelana asked where Issei was, noting his absence. Searches explained that the guards who survived Issei's wrath had conducted tests and discovered that their experiments had inadvertently blocked his ability to maintain a semi-human form. He could only exist in his wolf form until he figured out how to regain his human appearance, and he was not in a good mood to see them. Searches recounted everything that had happened in the cell, how they had arrived in Lily, and the disastrous reception they received from the people. When they reached the Gremory castle, Issei's reaction to Grephia had shocked everyone. The leaders of the biblical factions, the gremory patriarchs, the yodouy family, and the occult club were all taken aback by Issei's demeanor, which was understandable given what he had endured. As they prepared to enter, they were met with the sight of a massive wolf, nearly the size of a tiger, with fur as dark as the night and glowing red markings. His eyes radiated hatred and resentment, leaving everyone feeling a mix of sadness and fear. Issei observed the leaders of the factions, the gremory patriarchs, the yodouy family, the occult club, and the student council, including Sona and the Phoenix Plan. He noticed Graphia, Milikas, and a few other female leaders, all of whom looked at him with nervous smiles, unsure of how to break the tension in the air. Suddenly, Rias, overwhelmed by her emotions, rushed forward and embraced Issei, showering him with affection. In the chaos, no one noticed her approach until it was too late. She wrapped her arms around him, expressing her feelings with passion, her legs encircling his waist as she leaned in closer. Her chest heaved as her ears and tail moved frantically due to the uncomfortable situation of being touched after everything that had happened. Wonder why she didn't use her abilities to free herself. The answer lay in the special collar placed on her, designed with angelic energy to restrain her most lethal powers and prevent her from harming anyone when angry. The chains and guards holding her made it difficult to move, especially since the red-haired girl had her pinned down, making it hard to escape in her wolf form. The more she squirmed, the tighter the girl held her, pressing her into her chest, making it hard to breathe or retaliate. As she struggled for air, the girl kissed her, disregarding her wolf form. Rias expressed her affection, calling him her precious pawn and beautiful wolf, lamenting how much she missed him and declaring that she would not leave his side. She kissed him again, while he continued to struggle against her embrace. Observers watched with wide eyes, a comedic sweat drop forming on their foreheads as the scene unfolded. In his mind, he thought that things couldn't get worse while trying to escape the girl who held him captive. Just as he thought this, other women in the room rushed to do the same as the red-haired girl, surrounding him, hugging him like a plush toy, kissing his face and neck, and petting his fur. The yokai among them delighted in stroking his ears and tail, finding his fur incredibly soft and comfortable. Fallen angels and other angels touched his 20 pairs of wings, marveling at the smoothness of his plumage. The archangel Gabriel particularly enjoyed the softness of his wings and the scent he carried. As the scene continued, he grew increasingly frustrated with the attention he received. His patience was wearing thin, and everyone could see his tails moving violently, pushing them away and tossing them onto the furniture. He finally found a moment of space and expressed his annoyance, stating that they were a nuisance and a headache. He demanded to know why they had taken him from his cell and whether they intended to bring him to a place worse than Tartarus. Odin intervened, attempting to calm him down, but he was met with a sharp retort. He unleashed a hint of his killing intent, causing everyone to tremble in fear. His mother pleaded with him to stop, reminding him that he was not like this. He snapped back, pointing out that it was their fault he had become this way. Guru tried to intervene, insisting that he apologize to his mother and come home with them to find a way to return to normalcy. However, he was cut off when sharp green shards flew dangerously close to him, embedding themselves in the wall and sparking as they struck. Issei's appearance shifted to a dark green wolf with glowing accents, surrounded by the shards, before he returned to his normal form. He warned them not to tell him what to do, asserting that he had no father but the biblical God, reminding them that he had existed long before being placed in his mother's womb. Alice attempted to remind him that they were family, having grown up together and shared many good moments, but he laughed at her, asking her to recall any fond memories they had shared. The silence that followed spoke volumes, as none of them could remember anything significant about him. He expressed his frustration, stating that they didn't know anything about him, not even his likes or dislikes. He refused to accept that they were family, pointing out that while they enjoyed birthday parties and family outings, he often went hungry and alone, with only bullies for company. He had worked to pay for his own things until Ryu got him fired. Exhausted from the situation, he declared that he would find another room to sleep in and wouldn't share a space with any of them. He left them feeling sad and found a room that belonged to a servant. Despite the oddity of how he opened the door with his paws, He had learned to use his tail for such tasks. The others searched for him to have dinner but found no trace of him. Later that night, Issei ventured out to find something to eat and stumbled upon some leftover cake. He wondered who would be foolish enough to leave it out without storing it. He sniffed it and found nothing wrong, contemplating trying it. As he gazed at the full moon, he recalled the time spent with his father and siblings before he became human and the war began. He remembered Gabriel pleading with him to sing, as he always did to comfort her when she was scared, and how he had created a song for her, as his father had encouraged him to do. Issei felt a wave of emotions and stress as he gazed at the moon. He thought to himself that it was the first time in a long while that he would sing again. He planned to sing the song he used to sing to Gabriel when they were with their father, hoping he could remember how to do it. Issei was singing a song when memories flooded back to him, memories of what the factions and the demons had done to him. He recalled how he used to transform parts of himself into those of other races. As thoughts of demons and dragons crossed his mind, his body began to glow, and his form changed. He became a young man with red hair, a demon tail, dragon wings, and horns. He held a piece of cake in his hand, enjoying it. His outfit consisted of a sleeveless black shirt and a short black and red trench coat that fell below his hips, complete with a hood. He wore black jeans with a chain hanging from one pocket. His nails were black and claw-like, his ears slightly pointed, and his eyes glowed a bright red. He had markings on his neck and arms resembling flames, and his skin was very pale, with stripes like flames beneath his eyes. This was Issei's current appearance, and as he looked at himself, he wondered how he had achieved it. He remembered his father telling him that when he looked at the moon, he could change anything into another form, as the moon and its light were sacred like angels. Being the son of a god, he possessed this power, but only during a full moon. Suddenly, he heard someone approaching but paid no mind, too focused on his hunger and the cake he was eating. A person with a flashlight pointed it at his face and asked him to move it away so he could eat. The person standing in front of him, shining the light in his eyes, made him curious. He heard noises coming from below and a voice singing a song. He wondered who it was, but upon seeing the boy standing there, he thought he was a thief. However, when he heard the voice, he recognized it as Issei. Ravel was surprised and blushing as she exclaimed how Issei had returned to his semi-human form. Issei brushed off her surprise, removing the flashlight from his face with his tail, annoyed that it was still shining in his eyes. Ravel expressed her confusion about how Azazel and Ajuka had conducted tests on his DNA to see if he could return to normal, but all results had come back negative. Issei was furious, realizing that those two had used his DNA for experiments without his consent. He threatened to take action against them, demanding to know when they had done it. Ravel explained that it happened when they put the collar on him, assuring him that it was not for anything malicious but to help him. Issei reminded her that because of their actions, he couldn't remain in this form for long. Ravel asked what he meant by that, and Issei clarified that he could only maintain this form during a full moon while singing, as it helped him calm down and concentrate his power. However, her interruption had disrupted his calm, and he would have to revert to his wolf form again tomorrow night. Just then, they heard a group of people approaching with more flashlights, all shining them in his face. Issei felt frustrated, wondering why it was always him in such situations. Asia asked Ravel who Issei was and why they were talking in the dark kitchen. Aquino commented on how handsome Issei looked and expressed a desire to have fun with him, adding a playful yet slightly mischievous tone. Issei found her comment unappealing but chose to ignore it and focus on his cake, which was more important than their conversation. Ravel nervously introduced Issei as his true form, and the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Everyone gasped in disbelief, questioning how he could be Issei. Zudicus confirmed the truth of Issei's identity, and while they recognized him, the women began to entertain less than innocent thoughts about him. After Ravel explained why Issei looked this way, everyone began to understand. Venelana asked if he would return to his wolf form again tomorrow night, to which he simply nodded. Issei mentioned that his emotions would affect how long he could stay in this form. Ria suggested that he could attend the academy the next day, but Issei was skeptical about how he could go if his transformation lasted such a short time. Searches reminded him of the magical communication circle he had opened during his battle with Rhizavim and the Trihexa, which revealed the supernatural world to humans. Issei was shocked to learn that everyone in Japan now knew about them, especially those from the Core Academy, and that world leaders wanted to congratulate him for his heroic deeds. He felt this would lead to complications, suspecting that Searches was hiding something. When he pressed for details, Searches explained that the humans had witnessed him defeat 2 enemies and were aware of his actions. Everyone was taken aback, realizing that Issei had uncovered the truth about their situation. Kuroka pointed out the silver lining to Issei, suggesting that he could attend the academy regardless of his current form. She felt nervous under his gaze. Issei, however, expressed his frustration, stating that it was not a good situation for him, as he had to deal with the consequences of the collar he wore and the betrayal of certain humans who had helped them connect with him. He found it all incredibly annoying. Despite his reluctance, Issei knew he had to go to school, as his father would have wanted him to complete his studies. This news made the girls happy, as it meant they could spend more time with him and perhaps earn his forgiveness. Asia chimed in excitedly, saying that she would attend the academy with them. Issei clarified that he was doing this for his father, not for them, and that even if he studied elsewhere, it would be the same. He also had certain matters to attend to regarding the celestial realm and was determined not to let his father's work be ruined by Michael. Before the girls could suggest sharing a bed with him, Issei vanished, leaving them a bit sad but hopeful about being close to him at the academy. Later, after Issei returned to his room, he wanted to keep his presence hidden from the Gremory family and others until morning. He took advantage of the night to transform into his wolf form and absorb the moon's energy, allowing him to maintain his current state a little longer. As the time approached for everyone to head to the academy, they realized Issei was missing until they heard his voice emerge from the shadows of one of the castle's pillars. Rias expressed her surprise at his presence, asking how long he had been there. Issei replied that he had been waiting for them since they woke up, eager to finish the annoying day. Asia questioned why he wasn't in the human form he had shown them the night before. Issei explained that he was conserving the pure energy he had absorbed from the moon, as he had been in a semi-human form for a long time. He then requested that Asia not speak to him so familiarly, reminding her that they were not close enough for that kind of interaction. This made Asia feel sad, as Issei did not regard her as a friend or anything more. Kiba inquired why Issei hadn't had breakfast or asked a servant to prepare something for him. Venelana agreed, stating that it wasn't good to go to school on an empty stomach, sounding like a concerned mother. Issei, however, was indifferent to their concerns. Grafia offered to prepare something for him, hoping he would accept, as no one could resist her delicious cooking. Issei declined, stating he was not hungry after what he had eaten the night before. Grafia insisted that cake was not a proper breakfast and that it wasn't healthy, speaking to him as an older sister might. Issei reminded her that she was not his older sister and should not speak to him in that manner. He explained that his body had adapted to needing very little food in the underworld and that there were things he could barely taste due to past experiences, even though he had healed. Eventually, everyone departed using a magic circle, arriving in an alley before walking down the street. They attracted the attention of passers-by, and Issei found it strange that humans were aware of the supernatural world and coexisted with it. In his thoughts, Issei reflected that his father would be pleased to see everyone together, but this reality had come at the cost of his own pain and suffering. The hypocrisy of humanity weighed heavily on him. People recognized Issei, as the leaders had informed them of his innocence when he defeated Tridza and Rhizben. Many wanted to apologize for their past actions, while others could not bear to look him in the eye out of shame. They could hardly believe that the wolf, the size of a tiger, accompanying the gremory and the yodouy was their hero, whom they had betrayed and doubted. Upon arriving at the academy, chaos ensued as students were shocked to see their former classmate in this new form. Once the groups headed to their classrooms, Issei found himself in the same group as Asia, Irina, Zenobia, Izari, and Anna. The girls were thrilled to be in the same group as him, but Issei was not amused by their excitement. They tried to behave well, aware that he was uncomfortable with their attention. When they reached their classroom, the teacher announced a new student. However, Since the other students had not yet seen Issei, who was still behind the desk in his wolf form, they only noticed Irina and Zinovia. One student voiced their confusion, asking why they only saw Irina and Zinovia. Irina encouraged Issei to come out, and as he did, the sound of animal paws and chains moving filled the room. The students were astonished to see a black wolf with red markings and an intense gaze that seemed to convey a deep fury. They were taken aback, realizing that this was Issei, their former classmate and the hero who had suffered at their hands. He was the eldest son of the biblical god and the one who had defeated Tridza, the dragon of the apocalypse, and Rizban, the son of the original Lucifer. It was shocking for them to witness the consequences of their actions in such a tangible form. Issei introduced himself with a cold tone, making everyone shiver. He expressed that he had no interest in meeting them. As the girls prepared to sit near him, Zinovia decided to make a playful joke. She encouraged Issei to transform into his semi-human form for the occasion, teasing him about sitting properly instead of like a dog. She warned him to be careful not to fall and offered to help him by playfully trying to lift him into her arms, mimicking how one might lift a small pet. Just as she was about to grab him, she had to pull back to avoid a collision, thanks to Irina who had pulled the chain connecting them. If it weren't for that, Zinovia might have ended up with a rather unfortunate situation. Issei, frustrated, reminded her that he had repeatedly asked not to be touched. He warned her to be grateful for the chain, as it prevented him from acting on his anger. He firmly stated that he would not take any more of her flirtatious commands, threatening that next time he might not hold back. Irina expressed her concern, reminding Issei that attacking Zinovia was not right and that he knew it. She asked him to transform to make things easier. Issei acknowledged her words, feeling that the actions of the angels had been unfair. He mentioned that this was just a minor consequence of the past and requested that she not interfere. He was already preparing to transform before her friend Shido interrupted. As he spoke, flames erupted around him, revealing his true form, which had elements of both demon and dragon. This was the same appearance he had shown everyone the night before. The students were left in awe, their mouths agape, while some girls blushed intensely, and a few even had nosebleeds. They were amazed at the transformation, realizing that he could indeed take on a semi-human form, something they had not expected. The professor broke the silence, questioning Issei's earlier claim that he couldn't transform into a human. Issei confirmed that while he could maintain this form for a day, it required him to remain calm, otherwise, he would revert to his wolf form and would have to wait for the next full moon. He urged everyone to focus on their studies, his cold gaze intimidating the class. Classes resumed, but Issei found them tedious. He had always been the brightest student before the betrayal, and he already knew the material being taught. Whenever he was asked a question, he answered correctly, surprising everyone with his knowledge despite spending 3 years trapped in Tartarus. The church group and the sisters attempted to congratulate him on his intelligence, but he ignored them, which saddened the girls. The rest of the class noticed this but felt they had no right to confront him, especially given their past actions, which he clearly resented. During recess, the atmosphere became lively as rumors spread that Issei could take on a semi-human form, albeit temporarily. The girls looked at him with admiration, almost revering him, while the boys watched with envy. Issei remained indifferent to their opinions, caring only about anyone who dared to provoke him. In the cafeteria, he sat with the Gremory family, but he didn't eat. Memories of being served overpriced food or having it thrown on the floor haunted him. The cafeteria staff, influenced by rumors about him, seemed intent on making his experience miserable. Others noticed his lack of appetite and speculated whether he was sick or simply didn't have money. It was unusual for him not to be hungry, surrounded by so many eating students. The cafeteria staff hoped he would buy something, but he merely glared at them with disdain, reflecting his feelings toward the students as well. At his table, chaos ensued as the girls tried to feed him, treating him like a child or a partner. He declined their offers, stating he wouldn't eat anything prepared by them or the cafeteria, as their cooking was terrible to him. He explained that his sense of taste had been ruined by their past actions, and he simply wasn't hungry. The guardians had often left him without food for weeks, which made others uncomfortable. They felt guilty, realizing that while they enjoyed warm meals, he had only received stale bread and water during his confinement. The weight of their past actions pressed heavily on them, knowing that Issei had survived due to the cruel experiments conducted by Azazel and Ajuka. After the final classes, where the mood was dampened by the earlier cafeteria incident, students prepared for club activities as they left the classroom. While in the occult club, everyone was busy with their tasks, particularly making contracts. This time, our favorite wolf had to join his sisters and brother. He was tasked with making contracts alongside Ryu, Alice, and Elisa. They were excited to spend time with their brother, but for our wolf, it was rather bothersome. The atmosphere was lively, although a few women requested to spend time with Issei, not recognizing him. With a hint of annoyance, he revealed his identity to deter their advances, which left the women embarrassed and unable to face him due to their earlier behavior. The other contracts proceeded normally until they returned to the club, where everyone was chatting. As night fell, Issei began to glow, transforming back into his wolf form, signaling that his time was up. They had to wait for the others to return from their contracts. When everyone settled down, Issei found a spot on the couch, though he preferred to keep his distance from them. Some girls made space for him, as did the boys, and everyone was amazed when they noticed his eyes glowing a bright red. A perfect-sized pillow appeared for him, and he lay down to take a nap while waiting for Gasper, Irina, Zenobia, Izari, Elisa, and Kiba to arrive. In the club, only Ryu, Rias, Aquino, Asia, Kaneko, Rabel, Roswazen, Alice, Elisa, and our protagonist remained. As they chatted, one of the girls approached Issei while he slept, wanting to pet him. Asia knew this might upset him and could lead to a reprimand, but she felt it was a way to atone for not helping him in the past. She reflected on all the suffering he endured because of everyone, wishing she had believed in his innocence and sought proof of it. However, she realized it was too late to regret her actions. The damage was done, and he harbored resentment towards her for how she treated him. Deep down, Asia felt that what she and the others did was wrong, but she lacked the courage to help him, fearing the consequences. Memories of the church incident haunted her, where she had faced backlash for aiding a demon. She didn't want to relive those moments, which is why she never helped Issei, even though she wished she could have revealed the truth. It pained her to know she had always believed in his innocence, yet her cowardice prevented her from acting when she had the chance. Asia approached Issei, prepared to face whatever punishment he might give for her actions. She sat close to him, gently lifting his head and placing it on her lap. As she stroked his head and ears softly, she knew that some animals were sensitive in those areas. Tears filled her eyes as she watched him sleep peacefully, recalling all the times he had helped her. Regret washed over her for not standing up for him when she had the opportunity. She leaned in closer, fully aware that he might react negatively, but she wanted this chance to apologize properly, hoping he would listen and not ignore her. With a mix of affection, remorse, and sadness, she whispered near his ear, expressing her feelings. She felt deep remorse, knowing she did not deserve his forgiveness after having doubts about him and believing what others said. Even though she felt he could never commit such terrible acts, because if he had, he would not have saved someone as helpless as her. She wanted him to know how sorry she was, even if it earned her his anger and resentment for what she had done. She promised not to bother him again or approach him unless he wished it. She understood that her actions were wrong and that she did not deserve forgiveness from God, let alone from him, her first friend and the most special person in her life. The former nun spoke softly, hoping the others would not hear her, as they were too engrossed in their own matters to pay attention to her situation. Afterward, she distanced herself from him, not wanting to trouble him further, unaware that he had been awake all along, listening to her words. He had been waiting to see what she would do, and if she had been hypocritical like the others, he would have confronted her. However, being part angel, he could sense when someone was lying, and he knew the former nun was speaking the truth. If she had lied, he would have reacted differently, perhaps even turning to stone until she revealed the truth. He felt her words were genuine, even if he had never fully trusted her. He struggled with whom to believe and who was telling the truth. He had to accept that if she had helped him in front of everyone, they might have harmed her, and despite his painful past, he recognized that she had apologized sincerely, unlike others who had hoped he would return to his former self, which he knew was impossible. He also realized that she believed if he did not forgive her, she would not trouble him like the others who showed no remorse for their actions. It seemed hypocritical to expect everything to return to how it was before, as if nothing had happened. The former nun had the courage to approach him and face the consequences of her actions, knowing how he interacted with the others now. He thought that perhaps he would forgive her, but he would not trust her until he saw if she was reliable. The trust he once had for her was nearly gone, and rebuilding that trust would take years, as trust could be lost in an instant but took a long time to regain. He would consider this later. He awoke, realizing he had indeed slept, feeling as if he had returned to the others. They had gone to the underworld, and he retreated to his room, reflecting on the complicated day he had experienced and what awaited him the next day. After a confusing day, he set up a barrier in his room to ensure no one could enter, especially not the gremory girls, as he was aware of their mischievous nature. He was deep in thought about the day's events when he found himself unable to sleep. Quietly, he left his room and began exploring the gremory castle, feeling drawn to something until he discovered where relics were stored. He had no intention of stealing, he simply wanted to see what called to him with such urgency. Transforming into a black wolf with a shadowy cloak, he slipped through the door, which bore magical symbols for security against intruders. He managed to pass through the door and the symbols unnoticed. Upon entering, he saw the object that had drawn him in a crystal necklace. He recognized it immediately. It was the old necklace his father had given him. It served as both a key and a portal to another world his father had created, asking him to take care of it in his absence. He had never imagined his father would truly leave. A melancholic expression crossed his face as he realized this was the last thing he had from his father. He wondered how the necklace had ended up in the possession of demons, speculating it might have fallen during a battle when his father had been teaching him about it. It didn't matter if someone claimed it. The necklace belonged to him, as it bore his name. When he held the crystal, a light reflected his name, but something strange happened. The gold chain transformed into silver, and he heard a voice urging him to save her, though he did not understand from what. He felt a mysterious voice calling out to him, and suddenly, a collar appeared around his neck. It glimmered, and a portal opened like a door, transporting him into a traditional Japanese-style house. Outside, he could see a forest shrouded in darkness. He realized that this house was created by his father, God, along with all the weapons left behind, which he had never shared with the other angels. He understood why his father had allowed him to endure so much suffering. It was all part of his journey. Now, he needed to focus on discovering the source of the presence that beckoned him. For a moment, he felt paralyzed, unable to move. His eyes glowed as darkness enveloped him, and he heard the same voice again, this time calmer, reciting an incantation for summoning a guardian familiar. When he opened his eyes, he grasped something important. He could see a blurry shadow of a girl holding a collar similar to his, but hers had a white stone. This was the other key created by his father, and he wondered how this human possessed it. He noticed her hand was bleeding and realized that by combining her collar with her blood, she had formed a pact with him. Now, he was her guardian familiar, tasked with protecting her. The incantation she had used echoed in his mind, invoking him as the Son of God, the Wolf of Night and Light, with fur as dark as the night and red as blood, eyes burning like the flames of purgatory. She called upon him to be her companion and guardian, pledging her blood, soul, and purity as a contract in exchange for his power and assistance. After this realization, he felt movement return to him. He was back in the same place, but the voice now called to him with greater urgency, as if something terrible was happening. He quickened his pace and spotted a girl who lay unconscious and weak. He sensed her aura. She was his summoner, the one he needed to protect. He saw a creature resembling a hobgoblin preparing to attack her. Some of the knights accompanying her were injured and unconscious from the monster's assault. He lunged at the creature, using his claws to strike. The energy from his claws surged against the monster, overpowering it and leaving behind items as rewards for defeating it. It felt surreal, like being in one of those Issei video games, but there was no time to dwell on that. He turned his attention to the wounded knights, dividing his tale into multiple parts, each touching one of the injured. A white energy enveloped them, healing their wounds instantly. Once he finished, he approached the girl again. He examined her closely and had to admit she was beautiful. Her attire and scent hinted at royalty. She seemed like a princess, which surprised him. He had expected a witch or sorceress to summon him, not a princess. Nevertheless, he focused on healing her. He pressed his forehead against hers, channeling his energy into her while the red parts of his fur glowed brightly. As the princess slowly opened her eyes, she saw the creature that resembled a wolf or a type of fenrir that had saved her life and that of her knights. Through her summoning collar, she recognized him as her familiar. She recalled the memories associated with the collar, realizing he was the son of God and that his name was Issei. Her heart raced with a newfound connection. She felt chosen by the collar since birth, sensing a bond with Issei. Their souls were now sealed by the pact. She opened her eyes wider to see her new guardian, confirming he matched the description from the incantation. For as black as night, red as blood, and eyes like the flames of a bloody purgatory. Yet, within those eyes, she sensed peace and kindness, alongside feelings of distrust, sadness, hatred, resentment, and betrayal. But there was also goodness and generosity. She gently cupped his face and expressed her gratitude, acknowledging that she knew he would come to save her. Now they were both bound together. As the princess kissed the magical wolf, Issei stood in shock, unable to comprehend the situation. He wondered if anything could be worse than this, but unfortunately for him, the captain of the guard, Owen, was searching for the princess. Seeing a creature so close to her, he prepared to attack, believing the wolf was about to harm her. If only he knew the truth of the situation. When Owen charged forward, he halted abruptly upon realizing that instead of the princess being in danger, she was affectionately kissing the creature as if they were a couple. The sight left him speechless, and the other knights, who had just awakened to the scene, were equally stunned. Owen called out to the princess, expressing his concern. He questioned her actions, worried about the potential danger of kissing a wild animal and wondering about the creature that had attacked them earlier. At that moment, Owen's shout snapped Issei back to reality, and he reluctantly pulled away from the kiss, much to Lexia's dismay, as she had wanted to continue. Lexia asserted that she disliked being ordered around as if she were a child. She explained that Issei was the one who had saved her and the others, indicating the collar that marked him as her familiar. Owen remained skeptical, questioning how she could be sure it wasn't a trap. Lexia insisted that if Issei had intended to harm her, he would have done so already or allowed the creature to attack them. She reminded Owen that Issei wore the same collar as her and that he had proven himself when the crystal revealed his true nature. She declared that he would not only be her familiar and guardian but also her fiancé. The knights gasped in disbelief, unable to process what they had just heard. Issei, meanwhile, was bewildered by the turn of events. He had gone from being a mere pet of factions to becoming the familiar and guardian of a princess he barely knew. This was the strangest situation he had ever encountered, and he had seen many odd things in his life. Owen suggested they leave the area, as it was no longer safe. He mentioned the need to inform the king about the situation, unsure how the news would be received. He also pointed out that they had not asked Issei if he understood their conversation. Before Owen could continue, Issei interrupted, revealing that he could indeed understand them perfectly. This revelation surprised Owen and the guards, but it delighted Lexia, who embraced Issei and playfully touched his face, asking if he would marry her. All the men, except for Issei, fell silent in shock. Issei felt embarrassed and irritated, suspecting that Lexia was mocking him like other women had in the past. Yet he sensed that she was sincere in her proposal, though he struggled to trust her, given their limited acquaintance. After that awkward moment, Owen insisted they leave before nightfall, as the forest was perilous. They made their way to the castle, where the king awaited news about the one who had saved his daughter. Issei braced himself for the king's reaction, hoping it wouldn't lead to a misunderstanding or anger that might provoke the king into a rash decision. Owen explained the situation to the king, omitting the details about Issei being a creature with extraordinary abilities and the princess's proposal. The king was not amused by the news and questioned who the princess thought she was to make such a declaration. As the king wielded his sword, empowered by ancient magic, he began to unleash destruction upon everything in his path. Owen, seeking refuge behind a wall and a pillar, wondered why the royal family was so troublesome. Once the king calmed down and addressed the chaos he had caused in the hall, he summoned his daughter and the warrior who had saved them. However, upon seeing a wolf or fenrir the size of a tiger, he questioned whether this was some sort of joke. Nervously, Owen explained the parts he had withheld, mentioning that he had chosen not to share certain details because of how his daughter typically reacted to news, recalling the incident of her kidnapping. The king reluctantly began to understand the situation and asked if the creature before him was indeed the familiar his daughter had summoned. He could sense a great power emanating from it, and the scroll that had emerged from his daughter's necklace indicated that it was an ancient being, the offspring of the creator of their world. He inquired if the creature understood him and if it had a semi-human form, as he felt he was speaking to a kind of pet. The king's serious demeanor was intimidating to anyone else, but it did not faze the protagonist. Issei acknowledged the king's words, confirming that he was indeed the son of the god who created their world. He introduced himself as Issei and explained that he did not currently possess a semi-human form due to past incidents involving betrayal. As they discussed, Issei revealed that he recognized the necklace among the remnants of the battle. He retrieved it from his inventory, showcasing a pendant shaped like a moon and a wolf. He noted that the information about the necklace indicated it could mend any magical defect, curse, or spell, regardless of its nature or the person it affected. As he adorned himself with the necklace, it began to emit a bright white light. Issei thought this time he would reveal his wolf ears, as he preferred not to display his demonic features, fearing that they might be mistaken for those of an enemy. He imagined himself with strands of red hair, blending his wolf traits with his appearance. Owen and the king were taken aback, while Lexia blushed at the sight. Issei noticed the transformation. His clothes had changed, and he now sported wolf ears and a tail. He remarked that this was an improvement, pleased that the necklace had worked. He expressed his relief at no longer being stuck in a wolf form for too long, grateful for the powerful magic that had restored him. The king acknowledged the resolution of that matter and emphasized the need for Issei to share everything about himself, understanding that trust would not come easily, even if he was his daughter's familiar. Issei spoke calmly but with a serious tone. He understood that the summoner's contract could not be undone unless Lexia broke it or died, and he did not want the latter to happen. Since the caller chose her for this purpose, it meant she could be trusted. Issei proceeded to share his entire story. After a while, the king, Owen, and Lexia were filled with mixed emotions upon hearing Issei's tale. He showed them his memories, and it was clear that they were genuine. They could hardly believe that God was dead and the extent of the suffering inflicted upon him by beings of other races, gods, and even humans. Witnessing the life he endured as a human was horrifying and unjust. The king and Owen felt deep sorrow for Issei. They could not imagine the hell he had faced due to circumstances beyond his control, especially considering all the good he had done for others. They were appalled by how he was unappreciated and the fierce battles he fought against powerful enemies, often at the brink of death to protect those he once cared for. The credit for his sacrifices was taken by those who did not deserve it. They recognized that the Yodouy brothers were utterly useless, especially in battle. Without Issei, they would undoubtedly be dead, and they were ungrateful for the sacrifices made on their behalf. Issei had been betrayed by those who believed in false accusations, and the torment he endured was relentless, lasting minutes, hours, days, nights, weeks, months, and years. It was a horrifying experience, akin to hell itself. The king and Owen could hardly fathom how someone could withstand such suffering without succumbing to darkness or madness. They both agreed that they would never do such things to anyone, especially not their own children. On the other hand, Lexia felt a mix of anger, sadness, disappointment, and disgust towards those who had rejected Issei for something he could not control. She was particularly hurt by how the women he loved turned their backs on him, choosing others over him. The betrayal from his family, companions, and beings of other races and humans who believed he was a traitor only added to his unimaginable suffering. For her, it was horrifying and distressing to witness the life he had to endure. She could only cry for the hardships he faced. However, they were astonished to see how Issei had defeated the enemies who labeled him a traitor, annihilating them with ease, including the apocalypse dragon, a creature that would destroy everything in its path without mercy. Lexia felt compelled to embrace Issei, assuring him that she would never treat him the way those women had and that she would love and protect him regardless of whether he was a god or had wolf traits. She wanted him to know he deserved to be with her. Issei felt the warmth and affection in Lexia's words, and for the first time he sensed the love in his heart returning, though he was unsure of what he truly felt. The king gave his blessing for Issei to be with his daughter, knowing he would take good care of her. He trusted Issei and believed that even God would support their union. Owen echoed the king's sentiments, expressing his desire to protect Lexia and acknowledging the hardships Issei had faced. He admired Issei's courage and determination to keep moving forward despite everything that had happened. Issei nodded, grateful for the support from the king and Owen. However, he mentioned that he needed time to think about the idea of marrying Lexia and that they should get to know each other better before rushing into anything. He explained that due to his past, he found it difficult to trust and love anyone after all the heartbreak he had endured. Lexia promised to work hard to earn his love, assuring him that she was not like the women from his past. She loved him for who he was, regardless of being the son of a god or having wolf traits. What mattered to her were his true values and feelings. Her words surprised Issei, but he felt the sincerity in them. He smiled and wished her luck in winning his heart, acknowledging that it would not be easy but was not impossible either. This brought joy to Lexia, and she embraced him, unexpectedly kissing him. This time, Issei did not shy away from the kiss. However, the king reminded them that it was too soon for such actions without being married, and it was not the right moment. This embarrassed both Issei and Lexia. Lexia blushed, imagining beautiful children with Issei's eyes and hair, complete with wolf ears and tails. The thought made her happy as she longed to build a family with him, while Issei felt a slight embarrassment that he tried to hide behind his serious demeanor. Lexia led Issei to her room, explaining that a guardian family member needed to be close to her summoner and owner, though it was also an excuse to get to know him better and sleep beside him. Overcome by the excitement of the day, she fell asleep in his embrace, and he simply held her close. He could embrace her, promising to protect her, as fate had somehow united them, just like those who had betrayed him. He hoped she could mend her broken heart, even though he felt himself slowly falling for her. He knew she wouldn't let him down, as their souls were now intertwined through their pact and necklaces, allowing them to feel what the other felt. He sensed that the love Lexia felt for him was genuine, especially after learning about her past and everything she had endured. Now, he had her by his side to truly make him happy and heal his own broken heart, just as his father would have wanted for him. Issei gazed into the distance, wondering what destiny had in store for him while he could be beside his cherished one, hoping their affection and happiness would grow little by little. The next morning, in a grand and luxurious princess's room within a castle, two people were asleep, though one was awake. It was their favorite elemental wolf, who was watching Lexia as she slept. He gently stroked her head, smiling at how much she enjoyed his affection. He reflected on the events of the previous day, which had been overwhelming, and now he found himself sleeping beside someone. Although he didn't fully trust Lexia due to her past, he truly wanted to believe in her. Through the bond they had formed, he could feel her emotions and the love she had for him was real. He had doubts about loving someone again, but Lexia's words, her attitude, and her bravery made him feel a sensation he thought he would never experience again: the true love and affection from someone towards him. It sparked a warmth in his heart that was gradually growing. He promised himself that while he couldn't protect his father during the war, he would protect Lexia with all he had. The thought of losing her made his heart ache, so he pushed it from his mind. As he watched Lexia open her eyes and look at him with a warm smile, he felt a sense of peace. After saying that, she approached him and affectionately kissed his forehead, causing him to look away, though she was unaware that her fiancé was happily reacting to it. Issei greeted Lexia and asked how she had slept. Lexia replied that she was well now that she had found him and inquired about his own sleep after everything that had happened the previous day. Issei shared that it was the first time in years he had slept feeling at peace, especially after everything he had endured in his life. Lexia expressed her happiness for him, emphasizing the importance of feeling good, and suggested that from now on, he should sleep with her to ensure he always felt well. Issei hesitated, mentioning that it felt a bit rushed since they weren't married, and he worried about how others might perceive their closeness. Lexia reassured him that no one would think poorly of it, as he was her guardian and fiancé. She felt safe sleeping next to him, as if nothing bad could happen while he was near. Issei reminded her that he had obligations in his other world, as well as in this one, given the responsibilities left to him by his father, the deity. He needed to investigate the hidden world, but he assured her that he would never neglect his duty to protect her. He told her that whenever she needed him, she could simply touch her necklace, and he would appear in an instant. Lexia nodded, understanding that he was practically a god with responsibilities that kept him from being by her side all the time, even though she wished he could be. After breakfast, which he enjoyed since it was the first time he had eaten with family and something that didn't harm him, he informed the king of his intention to leave and investigate what he had discussed with Lexia earlier. The king understood, knowing Issei had to do this while also ensuring his daughter's safety. He saw in Issei's eyes that he would give his life for her if necessary, which is why he allowed the engagement. The king would never let just anyone marry his daughter without knowing them first, and Issei was perfect. Who better to marry his daughter than the son of a god who viewed her with respect and not as an object? Though the king felt sadness for what Issei had suffered, knowing that no one with his qualities deserved such betrayal, he would still have allowed Issei to marry Lexia even before he unleashed his power. Issei had shared stories about his so-called brother's treatment of women, and the king could hardly bear the thought of seeing his daughter near someone like that, preferring to see the boy harmed before allowing him near her. He imagined how wonderful Issei and Lexia's future children would be, possessing the intelligence and magical power of their father combined with their mother's strength, and he knew Issei would make his daughter happy. After breakfast, Issei said goodbye to the king and Lexia. She kissed him goodbye, reminding him not to get into trouble and to help anyone who needed it. He reassured her not to worry, as he had a part of an angel within him that would help others unconsciously. He ventured into the forest, where he found the cabin his father had mentioned. Upon entering, he was surprised to find himself in a modern Japanese-style house. Sensing human presences and noting the absence of magic intrigued him, prompting him to explore the area. He changed into more casual clothing, similar to what Yodouy wore, hiding his ears and tail to avoid drawing attention as a magical being or being mistaken for someone in cosplay. Despite his efforts to blend in, he attracted attention, especially from women, who found him attractive, assuming he was an actor or model. This attention was bothersome and irritating to Issei, but he tried to ignore it, as he was not there to cause trouble. After wandering around all day, he stopped near an alley and witnessed something distressing: thieves attempting to harm a girl. He intervened, telling them to let her go, insisting she hadn't done anything to deserve their harassment. The first thief warned him not to meddle, suggesting he would regret it. The second thief added that they just wanted to have fun with the girl and advised him to leave before they disfigured his pretty face. Issei noticed the girl's pleading gaze and felt compelled to help her, remembering his father's teachings about aiding those in need. He declared that he disliked repeating himself and warned the thieves to let her go or they would suffer. The thieves laughed at him, underestimating him. Issei counted to 5, and when one of them lunged at him, he swiftly pinned him against the wall. He then counted to 1, and before the others could react, 2 of them were knocked out on the ground. He counted to 2 and then 3, finishing the last one with an upward kick that sent him flying into a trash bin. At that moment, the girl called the police and explained what had happened. The officers arrested the men and took them away. She expressed her gratitude for his actions, but he insisted that she should not thank him. It was simply the right thing to do. He had put on a sweater to avoid drawing attention to himself during those late hours, so the girl he saved could only see his striking red eyes. Just as she was about to ask for his name, she blinked, and he had vanished. Taking advantage of the moment when no one was watching and knowing she would blink, he slipped away and reappeared on a rooftop nearby. Issei felt a sense of inevitability about seeing that girl again soon, bringing with her a whirlwind of problems and adventures. He knew he would meet more people, even if he wasn't particularly fond of socializing with those his age. Despite being older than most, he had to maintain appearances. As he left the place, he pondered what awaited him in this world created by a higher power. After helping the girl, Issei returned home, reflecting on how the neighbors might mistake him for a school student. It was unusual to see someone his age not attending school, even though he was older than everyone around him. As he walked, he caught the attention of several students. Some of the popular kids enjoyed teasing him, but they kept their distance, sensing his serious demeanor. Others, who didn't understand, needed a firm reminder to stay away, especially those who were part of a rough crowd. Issei had little patience for two arrogant younger boys who believed they were the best in school. Their attitude reminded him of his former siblings, and he felt compelled to teach them a lesson their parents had failed to impart. After a brief confrontation, the boys learned to fear being near him, which humbled their arrogance. Over the months at school, Issei earned the nickname Lone Wolf Prince. The wolf reflected his cold, serious, and sometimes hostile demeanor when provoked. The prince came from his good manners and willingness to help those in need without expecting anything in return. He preferred solitude and excelled academically, achieving the highest grades and being the best athlete, though he refused to join any sports teams due to the hypocrisy he observed among students. He remembered how some weaker or nerdy kids were bullied for their appearance or weight, and he stood up for them, helping them find new schools where they wouldn't be harassed. One day, during recess, Issei was perched in a tree, engrossed in a book, when the same group of troublemakers approached him, accompanied by the two arrogant boys. Just as a confrontation seemed imminent, a limousine appeared out of nowhere, and a girl named Kaori stepped out. Issei recognized her as the girl he had saved from troublemakers months earlier. She explained that she had taken the time to research him and recognized him by his eyes and unique necklace. Issei was surprised but understood that her arriving in a limousine indicated she had the means to gather such details. Kaori informed him that she was looking for him to invite him to her academy, the same one Yuya had mentioned in the anime. Issei recalled doing some research on elite academies and realized that attending such a school could secure his future. Kaori added that she wanted to thank him for his earlier help. Issei hesitated, expressing that he didn't think he fit the profile of a standout student for her academy. Before he could say more, the two arrogant boys interrupted, claiming they would take his place if he didn't want to go. Kaori swiftly shut them down, stating that she wouldn't allow people like them, who had bullied Issei since his arrival, to be part of her academy. She emphasized that her school valued character over academic performance. Taking Issei by the hand, Kaori led him toward the limousine, despite his reluctance to be touched. She insisted on showing him the academy so he could make an informed decision. Issei sighed and agreed, knowing she wouldn't give up easily. As they drove away, the arrogant boys seethed with anger at their humiliation, plotting their revenge. In a different scene, Issei found himself in the principal's office, where he discovered that the principal was Kaori's father. This revelation surprised him slightly, though he maintained a composed exterior. The principal expressed gratitude for Issei saving his daughter from troublemakers, to which Issei replied that anyone could have done the same. The principal chuckled, noting that while anyone could have acted, Issei was the only one who did. He wanted someone as special as Issei to join his academy. Issei declined, believing it was meant for highly intelligent or prestigious individuals, and he didn't consider himself remarkable. However, he was aware that he was downplaying his abilities to avoid drawing too much attention. He sensed that both Kaori and her father would continue to press him until he at least visited the academy to see it for himself. With no other choice, he decided to spend the day at the academy to make an informed decision. That concluded this part of the story, and Issei looked forward to what awaited him next. One night, depending on when this is read, we return to our protagonist at the Osei High Academy, where he was still with the director and Kaori. Issei expressed his discomfort, stating that he felt he did not belong in such an elite academy meant for those who could afford it. The director reassured him, emphasizing that the academy sought individuals with potential and values. He posed a question to Issei about what it meant to be a genius. Issei replied that while many might define a genius as someone who can do everything, he believed a genius is someone who learns quickly and uses that knowledge to help others. The director nodded in agreement, explaining that this was precisely the kind of mindset the academy valued. He invited Issei to spend the day at the academy, suggesting that if he enjoyed it, he could stay and they would handle the transfer paperwork. Additionally, since Issei had saved his daughter, he would not have to pay tuition. Issei, realizing the director would persist until he gave the academy a chance, reluctantly agreed, hoping it wouldn't turn out to be problematic. This pleased Kaori and her father, and the director expressed his delight, wishing Issei a good day at Osei High Academy. He informed Issei that one of the professors would guide him on a tour of the school and called for Professor Sawada to enter. As Professor Sawada walked in, the director introduced her to Issei. He greeted her respectfully with a bow. Sawada noted his politeness and remarked that he seemed older than her students. Issei acknowledged this and suggested they start the tour. As they left the director's office, Sawada assured him that he would enjoy the academy. She guided him through the facilities until they reached the classroom. Upon entering, all the students turned their attention to their teacher. Sawada announced that they had a new classmate and encouraged them to treat him well. Issei stepped into the classroom, feeling the curious gazes of his peers as he approached the front. He introduced himself, hoping to get along with everyone, and bowed respectfully. The students continued to watch him, which made him feel a bit uneasy. "Excuse me, but why are you looking at me like that? Do I have something on my face?" One student replied that it was nothing, just that they were surprised to see someone like him looking so handsome. The protagonist sighed, feeling a bit like a statue, as he always attracted attention no matter where he went. Sawada then told Issei that he could sit next to Miss Yukine Hayadu. Issei was slightly surprised to find that the girl shared his last name, a strange coincidence that he didn't show on his face. He noticed a girl with short black hair, dark blue streaks, and violet eyes raising her hand, indicating she was the one the teacher had mentioned. He nodded and took a seat next to her, introducing himself. It was a pleasure to meet her, and he hoped to get along well. Yukine responded with a hint of disdain on her face, introducing herself in return. Issei thought to himself that she was a bit expressionless and reminded him of Kaneko, the small Nikomata, but he sensed she was a good person. The teacher instructed everyone to take out their books as they would begin math class. She asked Yukine if she could lend her book to Issei so they could work together. Yukine agreed and moved her desk closer to his so he could see the book better, and they started working on the exercises assigned by the teacher. As the class progressed, Issei found himself deep in thought. He reflected that the subjects they were covering were similar to those in any regular high school, albeit at a slightly higher economic level. The various clubs and academic activities offered here made it interesting, and he noted that this place was much quieter than the other schools he had attended. He was relieved not to have to deal with the two loud blonde boys or the troublemakers from the occult club, although he would eventually have to return there to complete his work. He didn't want to raise any suspicions about himself and preferred to avoid problems with those idiots. He also realized he needed to visit Lexia soon, as he didn't want her to worry about him. A thought crossed his mind that he might be falling for her, causing a faint blush to appear on his cheeks, unnoticed by anyone until the lunch bell rang, pulling him from his thoughts. Many of his classmates approached him, bombarding him with questions about whether he played any sports or had a girlfriend. Just as he was about to respond, a light brown-haired boy interjected, telling everyone to leave him alone and stop bothering him with their questions. The others noticed the situation and apologized to Issei, who accepted their apologies graciously. He asked the boy who had spoken who he was. The boy introduced himself as Igarashi Ryo, suggesting that Issei could call him Ryo for convenience. Issei returned the introduction, and Ryo expressed his hope that they would get along well. He suggested they head to the cafeteria to eat before it got crowded, smiling at Issei, who offered a small smile in return and nodded. The two walked to the cafeteria, and Issei was pleasantly surprised by the extensive menu, which looked delicious and was affordable. Ryo mentioned that the menu changed daily and that they always offered a free dish, which piqued Issei's interest. The two friends decided what to eat, and while they looked for a place to sit, a boy with short black hair and glasses named Shingo Kurata called out to Ryo. Ryo introduced Issei to Shingo, and they all sat down together to eat. Despite the casual atmosphere, Issei attracted the attention of everyone in the cafeteria. Shingo asked Issei about the clubs he was part of, to which Issei replied that he wasn't in any clubs, although he was good at all of them. Ryo chimed in, saying he was in the club for leaving early, explaining that he was good at sports but couldn't decide on one to join. Shingo mentioned he was in the video game club and showed Issei his portable console. Issei was surprised they were allowed to bring such things to school, and the three of them played games until it was time for classes to end. Afterward, Issei approached the director to discuss whether he would stay at the academy. The director asked Issei how he found the academy, and Issei expressed his admiration for the peaceful environment, the clarity of the classes, and the kindness of both teachers and students. The director was pleased to hear this and asked if Issei had made a decision. Issei hesitated, feeling unworthy of being there, but the director encouraged him to recognize his own value. Grateful for the director's words, Issei accepted the offer to stay, and they shook hands. After leaving the director's office, Issei encountered Kaori, who asked if he had made a decision. He confirmed that he would be staying at the academy. Kaori expressed her happiness and invited him to celebrate his enrollment. Issei agreed, intrigued by her suggestion. They left the academy and headed to a lively area nearby that students often visited after classes. Issei remarked on how fun and vibrant the place seemed, and Kaori shared that she didn't have many friends due to her father's job and their social status, which made other students a bit distant. Kaori led Issei to a stand selling delicious crepes. They both bought some, and although they were a bit pricey, Issei appreciated his ability to create whatever he wanted. Curious, he asked Kaori how she recognized him despite his disguise. She explained that it was his unique eyes that revealed his gentle nature, but she also sensed a hint of sadness in them. Issei was touched by her words, feeling a warmth in her sincerity. Kaori encouraged him to call her by her first name, and Issei smiled sweetly at her, causing her to blush. In a playful gesture, she offered him a bite of her crepe, and Issei reciprocated. Their innocent exchange drew the attention of those around them, who commented on how cute they looked together. Afterward, they said their goodbyes. Issei returned home and found himself in Lexia's room. As she entered, she rushed to hug him, her ears, tail, and wings on display. She showered him with affectionate kisses, which he had grown accustomed to. Lexia expressed how much she missed him and playfully pouted, wanting him to visit more often. He apologized and promised to spend more time with her, which made her happy. They shared a kiss, and Issei felt a growing affection for her, though he wasn't ready to confess his feelings yet due to painful memories from his past. Lexia interrupted his thoughts, reminding him that it was time for dinner with her father. The king had also started to take a liking to Issei, and they enjoyed a meal together. Issei shared stories about his previous world, though Lexia and the king struggled to grasp the concept of the modern world. He explained that it was due to a different kind of magic. After dinner, Issei and Lexia went to sleep, with Lexia using him as a pillow, their bond deepening as they shared the night. As Issei felt the gentle strokes on his head and ears, he began to relax and eventually fell asleep. Lexia smiled at the sight of him sleeping so peacefully. She placed a soft kiss on his forehead, as if to say goodnight, and soon drifted off to sleep herself. Issei woke up at home, enjoying breakfast. He pondered what he should do next, feeling somewhat dependent on the collar Azazel had placed on him. It was a tracking device, made with part of his DNA, likely strengthened by his father's. If it weren't for the spell that camouflaged it, explaining why he wore a collar would be quite awkward. He realized he needed new clothes, as he couldn't keep wearing the same outfits. Although he could create clothing with magic, he wanted to step outside for some fresh air. After finishing his breakfast, he left to see what he could buy. Since the incident with the traders, he had hardly any clothes that weren't part of his old school uniform or his current academy attire, along with the outfit he had worn when visiting Lexia. It was time to upgrade his wardrobe. As he walked through the streets, his appearance drew attention due to his striking looks. He arrived at the mall and began searching for clothes in his size when two store attendants approached him. One attendant asked if he needed help finding a specific style or size. The second attendant offered their assistance as well. Issei politely declined, assuring them he would ask if he needed anything. His courteous demeanor made the two girls blush, as he seemed like a prince or a knight. Meanwhile, in another part of the mall, a man was dealing with a modeling agency that was supposed to be conducting a photo shoot. The director, Hiraku, was visibly frustrated. He expressed his irritation that the model who was supposed to play the boyfriend in the photos had yet to arrive. The theme of the shoot was a couple enjoying a special day at the mall, and the female model had been punctual, waiting since morning. As Hiraku continued to vent his frustrations, the female model checked her phone, hoping her partner would call or at least inform her of his arrival. Hiraku then contacted the model's manager to inquire about the delay, but the manager could only apologize for the situation. Hiraku expressed his dissatisfaction, stating it was unprofessional for a model to be late without any notice. He emphasized that they had been waiting all morning and had other commitments afterward. Frustrated, he instructed his staff to find someone else who could step in and help with the shoot. At that moment, Issei was descending the escalator when he crossed paths with Hiraku, who was searching for assistance. Upon seeing Issei, Hiraku recognized him as a perfect candidate to help with their problem. After explaining the situation, Issei considered the offer. He sighed and accepted, realizing that Hiraku would persist until he agreed. Although he felt this might lead to some complications, he remembered his father's advice about helping those in. Accepting the proposal, he was introduced to the model who would be his partner for the photo shoot. The girl introduced herself as Midu and expressed her hope that they would work well together. Issei sensed she was kind and gentle, so he nodded in agreement, shaking her hand to signify their teamwork. The photo shoot commenced, and everything went smoothly. They changed outfits frequently, posing and smiling as if they were a real couple, enjoying the experience. During a break, Issei sat on a bench, drinking water, and Myo joined him. She asked Issei how he felt about the photo shoot so far. He found it interesting, noting that he had never done anything like this before and being in the spotlight felt unusual. Myo commented that he seemed like a good person and likely very popular due to his kindness and willingness to help others. Issei reflected on his life, admitting that it had always been filled with problems, not because he sought them out, but because they found him. Myo inquired if his family helped him with those issues, to which Issei replied that they never cared. They viewed him as a burden, only taking pride in his younger siblings. Myo asked if he harbored resentment towards them for their past actions. Issei acknowledged that he did, stating it would be a lie to say otherwise. He explained that what they did to him was unforgivable, and while they had once been close, everything changed overnight. He shared that one shouldn't always be the good person, as there would always be those who would betray them, making it less painful to avoid getting too attached. Myo expressed her sympathy, realizing she had touched on a painful subject. Issei reassured her that it was fine, explaining that he chose to share a bit of his life because he felt she was trustworthy. He admitted that he didn't often feel that way about people he had just met. Myo had always been passionate about fashion. Growing up, her parents were often too busy to pay her much attention, but one day she managed to become a model. At first, she made mistakes, but she adapted over time. It brought her joy to see people inspired by fashion, as it made her feel like she was not only helping the magazine but also motivating others. Issei noticed how much Myo enjoyed modeling. It was evident on her face. However, before they could continue their conversation, a blond boy entered the scene, speaking to Myo while ignoring Issei's presence. The boy crouched down, almost sitting on the floor, and apologized for being late to the photo session, wearing an arrogant smile. Myo asked him why he hadn't answered their calls, and he casually replied that he had been out late the night before. He insisted that now that he was there, they should start the session, but Myo informed him that they had already finished without him. The boy didn't believe her and stood up, cornering her as he suggested they grab a bite to eat afterward. Myo refused, stating that she had things to do and that everyone had wasted time waiting for him. The boy pressed on, questioning why she had been avoiding him the last time they met, inching closer to her. Issei could see that Myo was uncomfortable with the boy's presence, sensing her fear as he could almost feel her emotions. It was clear that the blond boy was making her anxious. Issei felt compelled to intervene, telling the boy to leave Myo alone, as it was evident that he was making her uncomfortable. Both Myo and the blonde boy turned to look at Issei, along with the others who were observing the situation. The arrogant boy, named Shan, asked who Issei thought he was to speak to him that way. Issei replied that he didn't care who Shan was. He only knew that Myo was uncomfortable and scared by his invasion of her personal space. Shan boasted that he was one of the most important models at the magazine and called Issei an incompetent intruder, a temporary replacement until he arrived, and warned him to leave before things went badly for him. Issei couldn't believe that someone so arrogant could be a model. To him, Shan appeared to be a bully, showing irresponsibility in his role and treating Myo poorly. He saw Shan as a troublemaker rather than a model. Shan grew angry at Issei's words, and before he could react, he slipped on Myo's handkerchief, which she had intended to lend to Issei to wipe his sweat. The handkerchief had fallen when Shan had approached her aggressively. Seizing the opportunity, Shan attempted to strike Issei in the face. However, Issei was quicker and more astute, easily dodging the slow attack. He grabbed Shan by the arm and pushed him down to the ground, ensuring he didn't use too much force to avoid serious injury. They were in a public place, and Issei didn't want to draw too much attention. As Shan struggled to get up, feeling the sting from the fall, he wondered how Issei had managed that. If he had practiced fighting, it would have been difficult for Issei to evade him, but his thoughts were interrupted by Hiraku, who arrived and revealed that he had recorded the entire incident. The video served as proof that Issei had acted in self-defense, as Shan had initiated the confrontation. With many witnesses who had seen Shan harass Myo, it was clear that Issei had only defended her. Shan stood up and left, followed by his manager, unable to bear the humiliation any longer. After Shan's departure, everyone had grown accustomed to his behavior, though they hadn't expected it to escalate so far. Hiraku apologized to Myo for not realizing she was being harassed, and she reassured him that it wasn't his fault. She expressed gratitude to Issei for defending her, as it prevented the situation from worsening. Hiraku explained that he would show the video to their boss to ensure Shan would no longer work with them, as his actions were unacceptable and reflected poorly on the company. Myo felt relieved at the prospect of not having to see Shan again. With that, the photo session concluded, and they thanked Issei for his help. Hiraku offered him a chance to work with them at the magazine, seeing potential in Issei's natural demeanor. Issei declined, feeling unprepared for such a role. Hiraku and Myo respected his decision, understanding that they couldn't force him to do something he didn't want. However, Hiraku insisted on compensating him for his assistance. He explained that he couldn't offer money since he wasn't an official model, and it wouldn't be beneficial for his work if the magazine paid someone with little experience who wasn't officially working for them. Instead, he proposed to pay in another way, showing many bags filled with clothes, assuring that he had checked they were the right size for the protagonist. The protagonist hesitated to accept such expensive gifts, especially given the quantity. Hiraku smiled and calmly insisted that he should accept this as payment for what he had done for them, emphasizing that in the working world, one always deserves some form of recognition for their efforts. Issei felt he had no choice but to accept, as Myo and Hiraku wouldn't stop insisting. He accepted with a smile, and they looked forward to working together again in the future, which Issei agreed to with a small smile. A while later, some of Hiraku's staff were in a truck with him and Myo, discussing the protagonist while looking at photos. Hiraku noted that it was a shame Issei hadn't wanted to accept the modeling job, as he would undoubtedly have been one of the best due to his unique charm and personality. However, he respected Issei's decision not to do something he didn't want. Myo, not paying attention, was focused on the tablet displaying photos of herself with Issei. Without thinking, she expressed her curiosity about him, finding him mysterious and wanting to know more about him. Hiraku teased her about her apparent fondness for Issei, noticing her blush. Suddenly, Myo realized what Hiraku had said, her face turning even redder with embarrassment, which was hard to hide. Everyone in the truck began to chuckle at the situation. Meanwhile, the protagonist was at home reflecting on his interesting day as a model and meeting Myo. He thought about all the clothes and items he received, concluding that it had been a long day filled with challenges but also fun. He organized everything to prepare for bed, wondering what new adventures or challenges awaited him the next day. It was a calm day for the protagonist, who wished every day could be this normal, free from fighting or dealing with troublesome individuals. He was in his garden from another world, practicing with the weapons from that place. He sighed, wishing every day could be this peaceful, though he acknowledged that not every day could be like this. He realized there was a part of the forest he hadn't explored yet. Rising from his spot, he crossed the path and ventured deeper into the forest until he heard a noise. He discovered an injured wolf pup on the ground, about to be devoured by an ogre. Issei couldn't leave the poor pup alone with such a creature. He assessed the situation, noting the ogre's level was 250, while the wolf pup was only at level 150, clearly at a disadvantage. In a swift motion, Issei summoned the spear he had been practicing with at home and threw it with all his strength. The spear pierced the ogre's chest, defeating it instantly and causing it to dissolve into particles, leaving a reward for the protagonist. He approached the wolf pup, who was initially resistant to his presence. However, upon sensing Issei's good intentions, the pup allowed him to tend to its wounds. After healing the pup, Issei intended to leave, but he noticed the pup wouldn't stop following him. Issei decided to adopt the puppy as his familiar, which pleased the wolf. He saw on his stats screen that it was a Fenrir puppy and gave it the name Neat, inspired by its dark fur that resembled the night. He later discovered that his companion was female, but that didn't matter to him. He told her that she would now be part of his team, and Neat happily offered her paw to him as if sealing their bond. Issei thought it was time to head home when suddenly, a burst of energy erupted from the trees. He instinctively stopped it with his hand, surprised by the sudden occurrence. Emerging from the foliage was a peculiar deer, which charged at Neat. She skillfully dodged the attack, striking the creature in the eyes. This deer was larger than usual, with massive antlers that contained both fire and ice magic, launching bolts of energy from them. Issei locked eyes with his companion, and they silently agreed to coordinate their attacks. At a crucial moment, Issei moved his spear into the deer's chest. It was clear that the creature was strong, and had Neat been alone, she wouldn't have stood a chance. The animal fell to the ground, defeated, dissolving into particles and leaving behind a reward. Issei sighed, acknowledging the challenge but finding it interesting nonetheless. He decided it was time to return home and prepare for the academy. He carried Neat in his arms and vanished from the scene at great speed, arriving back at his house. Once there, he got ready for the academy, where the day unfolded with typical classes. During recess, he watched his classmates play soccer when a girl named Keed Kazama approached him. Keed sat beside Issei in the bleachers and apologized for interrupting him, asking if he was going to join the others on the field. Issei greeted her, explaining that he didn't have his physical education uniform yet and didn't think he was as good as the others. Keed reassured him that it was fine and suggested he could just call her Keed instead of Kazama, playfully winking at him. Issei smiled at her cheerful demeanor. At that moment, a boy named Runji attempted to kick the ball toward the goal but missed, sending it flying toward Issei and Keed. In a flash, Issei reacted, stopping the ball before it could reach them, impressing everyone with his quick reflexes. Concerned for Keed, he checked if she was all right. Keed blushed at Issei's concern and confirmed that she was fine. Just then, a blond boy knelt in front of Keed, apologizing profusely for almost injuring such a lovely lady. He vowed to make amends for his mistake. Keed, feeling flustered, insisted it was unnecessary and that it had been an accident. She waved her hands, trying to ease the boy's embarrassment. The blond boy, grateful for Issei's intervention, introduced himself as Akira Ichinos. He struck a dramatic pose, claiming he was known as the Knight of the Dome. His flamboyant behavior elicited a few eye rolls from the group, but Ryo assured Issei that Akira was harmless and a good person despite his quirks. Issei noted this and felt a sense of camaraderie as everyone laughed, including Akira. Issei reflected on how different these people were from anyone he had known before. They treated him well, and he felt a sense of trust building within him, awakening a long-buried happiness. He smiled and shared a few light laughs, surprising everyone as it was the first time they had seen him genuinely happy. The girls blushed at his smile and the sparkle in his eyes. Afterward, Issei asked his friends if they could help him with something. He mentioned he had a puppy and, having never owned a pet before, wasn't sure what she needed. Keed offered to accompany him to the shops near the academy, where they could find supplies for his puppy. After saying goodbye to the others, Issei and Keed headed to the stores. Before long, he had everything ready and bid farewell to Keed, returning home. He tried the collar on Neat, checking if it fit well. She seemed comfortable, and he smiled, suggesting they go for a walk in the park together. Issei first encountered Kaori, and they chatted for a bit. He asked her about her dog, and she mentioned that she had found her, not wanting to share too many details. The dog, Neat, happily accepted the girl's affection, and Kaori remarked on her soft fur. Later, Issei heard someone speaking and saw it was Myo. He greeted her and introduced her to Kaori. Myo expressed her surprise at seeing him there, explaining that she often visited the park since she lived nearby. She mentioned needing to leave because they were attracting too much attention and hoped to see him again another day for a more relaxed conversation. After she left, Kaori asked Issei how he knew a model like Myo, as she was featured in fashion magazines. Issei explained that he met her at the mall while shopping for clothes, and she had asked for his help with a photo shoot when her model was late. Kaori commented that they must have gotten along well, saying Myo was a lovely girl. She inquired if they were dating, but Issei humbly replied that he didn't feel worthy of being with someone like her. Kaori insisted that any girl would be lucky to be with someone as kind and gentle as him. Their conversation was interrupted when they heard a commotion. A thief had snatched a woman's purse, and she was crying for help, leaving the crowd in shock. Issei quickly told Neat to handle the thief, and the puppy nodded obediently before chasing after the man. He approached the woman to check if she was okay. She thanked him for his help but lamented that her purse and belongings were likely lost forever. Issei reassured her, saying there was still hope as Neat was already on the thief's trail. Everyone turned to see Neat dragging the thief, who struggled to escape her grip, leaving the crowd astonished by her strength. Issei smiled, declaring that there was always hope. He urged Kaori to call the police. Just as she was about to use her phone, the thief, unhappy with the situation, pulled out a knife and managed to break free from Neat's hold. Frustrated, the thief lunged at Kaori, causing her to gasp in fear. However, Issei was quicker, seizing the man's arm before he could harm her. With a swift motion, he twisted the thief's arm, bringing him to the ground and immobilizing him. The crowd watched in awe at Issei's speed and strength as he subdued the criminal. After a moment, the police arrived to take the man away. They thanked Issei for managing the situation, and the woman expressed her gratitude for his assistance. Afterward, Kaori hugged Issei, thanking him for saving her twice now, once from the earlier threat and again just moments ago. He humbly replied that there was no need for thanks, but Kaori insisted that he remained the same kind and gentle person who helps those in need, hoping that would never change. Issei smiled at her words and returned home with Neat, who enjoyed the meal he had prepared for her. He affectionately petted her, pleased that she liked the food. He reflected on how interesting the day had been, though he knew he would soon have to return to his previous dimension. He sighed heavily, feeling the weight of the promise he made to his father to protect that world from the factions that threatened it. He missed his father and longed for his wisdom during these complicated times, especially with the traitors around. Yet, he found solace in the good people he had met, beginning to feel emotions like love and happiness again. He hoped he would not have to suffer as he had before. As he prepared for bed with Neat, he wondered what adventures awaited them the next day. It was a typical day for him, contemplating his impending return to the dimension of DXD. He knew it wouldn't be long before they realized he was missing and would frantically search for him. He worried they might find a way to track him to the realm of Lexia. He doubted they would get lost in the woods near his home, aware of the kinds of monsters that lurked there. It wouldn't be surprising if they ended up as prey for one of the gremories. He didn't want the factions near Lexia, knowing their selfish nature and thirst for power could lead them to attempt to conquer the realm, putting innocent people in danger because of his actions. He imagined what he would do to the factions if they dared to threaten Lexia. The supernatural world would witness true terror. Shaking his head to dispel those troubling thoughts, he reminded himself to stay alert for whatever might happen. With that in mind, he prepared to head to the academy, leaving food for Neat to eat throughout the day while he was away. The day passed normally for the protagonist, who noticed Kaori smiling at him through the window. He returned her greeting with a small smile that only she could see. However, the atmosphere shifted when a gang of motorcycle riders entered the area, causing a commotion and frightening the girls in the physical education field. The teacher stepped in to defend his students. The protagonist felt serious as he recognized that these were the most dangerous criminals in the area, especially when he spotted two blonde boys he knew from school. They had always tried to bother him, but he never let them get to him, always standing up to them. He was pulled from his thoughts by the teacher's urgent voice. The teacher instructed everyone to stay in the classroom and not to leave, stating that he would call the principal to notify the police. He rushed out of the classroom while the other students remained worried and unsure of what to do in this situation. The protagonist thought to himself about the annoying boys and their decision to bring such a gang to their school. He could already guess why they were there. Meanwhile, Kaori was trying to defend her classmates. She told the gang that they had no business being there and that the teachers would soon call the police to arrest them. One of the blonde twins remarked that she must be Kaori, the principal's daughter. Kaori recalled that these were the boys who had been bothering Issei. She questioned why they were causing trouble. The two boys responded that they wanted to feel better by making others' lives miserable, especially since they believed they were superior to Issei, who they deemed a nobody without family, while they had everything. They thought it would be entertaining to take revenge on him. Kaori insisted that the police would arrive soon, and it would be best for them to stop. One of the boys suggested that the police might take a while, and they could do something else in the meantime, like kidnapping her. The other boy agreed, stating that although their issue was with Issei, they would settle for this. The bullies approached Kaori, wielding metal bats, while the teacher attempted to stop them. Students from the upper floors watched the scene unfold, worried about the escalating situation. One student voiced his concern, stating that things did not look good. Another asked what they were supposed to do. Issei stood up, wanting to help Kaori and the others, but he felt the weight of negative words from those he had trusted before, which affected his confidence. However, he reminded himself that he could not be overwhelmed by such thoughts. He was no longer the same Issei as before. He had the power to help others and should not be afraid not now. He approached the window, and everyone watched expectantly as he opened it and turned to his classmates, assuring them that he would return soon. The protagonist jumped out of the window, landing on his feet without a scratch. He ran quickly, but one of the bullies cut him off, questioning how someone like him could attend their school and declaring that he would be punished. He ordered his gang to attack Issei, who swiftly dodged their attempts and disarmed them with ease. With the bullies left without weapons, the leader charged at Issei, vowing to leave him unrecognizable. Issei, however, simply stated that he was in a hurry and quickly evaded the attack, knowing he needed to reach Kaori, who looked frightened as the gang threatened her. The bullies stepped aside to reveal a large, muscular member of their gang, who boasted that Issei's speed and cunning would be useless against his overwhelming strength. He lunged at Issei, who stopped him with one hand and sent him flying, crashing into one of the motorcycles. Issei calmly declared that he did not like wasting time as he walked forward, serious and composed. The other bullies, astonished by his actions, released their hold on Kaori, now fearful of him. Issei checked on Kaori, asking if she was okay. She reassured him that she was fine and had known he would come to save her, just as he had done before. Just then she nearly lost her balance, but Issei caught her just in time. As the situation calmed down, the police arrived and apprehended the entire gang. Issei expressed his regret for any fear Kaori experienced during the ordeal. She replied that it was not his fault and that she had felt safe knowing he would come to her rescue. With the threat gone, everyone returned to their classes, feeling relieved that no one had been hurt. One of the twin bullies remarked on how pathetic the gang they had hired was, but their leader overheard and grabbed him by the collar, lifting him off the ground. To strangle the boy, the bully claimed it was all his fault while the girl screamed, pleading for him to let her brother go. The bully responded with a kick, sending her to the ground. Meanwhile, the police struggled to control the chaos caused by the bullies, especially since one of the blonde boys was being held hostage while the other boy begged for help. wishing someone would save him. At that moment, Issei appeared, grabbing the bully's arm and pulling him away from the boy, forcing both the blonde and the bully to the ground with the strength of his push. Issei looked seriously at the bully, demanding he leave the boy alone, then turned to check on the frightened child, asking if he was okay. The bully, however, quickly got back up and lunged at Issei, but with just a glance from Issei, the bully froze in place before collapsing to the ground. Everyone watched in astonishment at how Issei had handled the situation. Once things calmed down, the two blonde boys questioned why Issei had intervened, given that they had been bothering him since he arrived at their school. Issei acknowledged their words but stated that he could not forgive their actions. He remembered what his father had taught him. No matter the situation, one should not abandon those in need. The boy began to cry, and the sister of the blonde boy apologized to Issei. In a different dimension, a scene unfolded in a cantina where a hooded man spoke with a silver-haired woman named Luna. The man informed her that someone was interfering with his plans to dispose of Lexia and instructed her to deal with this person. Luna nodded, assuring him she would take care of it, as the hooded man ominously remarked that Lexia would pay dearly for what she had done. Back in the forest, Issei was patrolling with his companion, Night, searching for monsters to defeat and gain experience. He recalled Owen's words about the place he lived, known as the Dark Region, where the monsters he easily defeated were capable of destroying entire kingdoms. Issei wondered how his father managed to live in such a dangerous place, though he knew it would not be a challenge for him to handle those creatures. Issei remarked tonight that the day had been quite peaceful, with no monsters encountered so far, aside from a strange brush and a cube he could use as a hot water container. Suddenly, Night stopped, and Issei became alert as they both heard voices and the sounds of a struggle in the forest. They rushed to the scene and found beasts attacking a silver-haired girl who was injured and weak. Issei and Night sprang into action, slicing through the beasts with their swords. Once the last beast was defeated, Issei pulled a healing potion from his inventory, urging the girl to drink it while Night barked, expressing her unease about the girl. Issei understood Night's concern but knew they could not leave her there. They decided to take her home and wait for her to wake up, intending to ask her how she ended up in the Dark Region at such an hour. Issei carefully carried the girl in his arms as Night continued to think that she might bring them trouble. Issei shared the same feeling of unease. As they walked, the girl began to stir, awakening and weakly asking where she was. Realizing she was being carried, she panicked and struggled to free herself, inadvertently falling to the ground and hitting her head against a tree. As she clutched her head in pain, Issei admonished her not to be reckless when dealing with those creatures. Even though she had been healed, her body was still tired and weak, and she could have hurt herself even more by falling like that. He spoke seriously, using healing magic to mend her head injury, and she was taken aback by his actions. Since not many could do that, only those from the church, she noticed he had no ill intentions. If he had, he would have taken advantage of her moment of weakness and harmed her instead of healing her. Luna introduced herself, expressing her surprise at how quickly her wounds had healed. Issei revealed his name and mentioned that he was accompanied by his partner, Night. Night growled, clearly displeased with Luna's presence, prompting her to ask what was wrong. Luna shared that she had been training but was surrounded by a pack of goblins. She then inquired about the whereabouts of the goblins that had attacked her. Issei reassured her that he and Night had already dealt with them. Luna was astonished by this, realizing how dangerous those goblins could be for someone untrained, and she wondered how he had managed to defeat them all. Apologizing for her manners, Luna thanked him for saving her. She then asked why he was in the Dark Region. Issei explained that he was training to become stronger, which surprised Luna. She hadn't expected to find anyone else training in such a perilous place. When he asked her what she had said quietly, she changed the subject, making Issei suspicious and determined to keep an eye on her. Curious, Luna asked if Issei had carried her there. He confirmed that he had. She felt embarrassed, worried about being dirty and sweaty from running and fighting goblins. Issei reassured her that it didn't matter. What was important was that she was alive and safe. However, Luna expressed doubt about being able to return to the city in her current state, feeling shy as she tried to cover herself. Issei then had an idea and led her to a special waterfall nearby that had a cave, where she could bathe in privacy. The water was warm, reminiscent of hot springs in Japan. He set up a barrier to keep any monsters away from the cave and another for her privacy while he rested nearby on a large rock. He asked her how she was finding the experience. Luna was amazed, exclaiming that she never thought a cave in the dark region would have such pure and warm water. Issei explained that he didn't know all the places in the region but was glad to have discovered this one. He also mentioned that he had gained the ability to create crystal barriers after defeating a crystal servant monster. Luna was surprised to learn that he had defeated such a formidable foe, which explained why he was training in the dark region. Issei then asked if she wasn't there for the same reason. Her expression turned serious as she admitted she was there at the request of a client. When Issei asked her to repeat herself, she quickly changed the subject, unaware that he had heard her perfectly. This only deepened his curiosity about her, but he decided to hold off on pressing her for answers until he knew more about her. Luna suggested that Issei stay and train with her in the dark region, explaining that she needed to remain there for an important reason. Issei noted that she wasn't explaining why she needed to stay, and he felt it could be dangerous for her to train alone, given the unknown threats in the area. He agreed to support her training, which delighted her, but he clarified that he couldn't stay for long. As she emerged to thank him, Issei quickly turned away, reminding her not to do that. He playfully tapped her on the head with his tail, causing her to rub her head and complain about his teasing. They both knew they would be training hard and getting dirty regardless. Issei pointed out that she was a girl and he was a boy, questioning if she wasn't worried about him overstepping boundaries. Luna reassured him that if he had been that kind of person, he would have taken advantage of her when she was weak or unconscious. This made Issei reconsider his thoughts about her, but he still decided to keep a watchful eye on her actions. The wolf playfully nudged her back into the water, urging her not to do anything strange. Luna laughed, realizing he was quite shy about these matters and had likely never been in such a situation with a girl before. She also recognized his chivalry, as he didn't look at her inappropriately and scolded her for her sudden actions. After Issei ensured Luna was comfortable, he and Night went out to hunt for food by the river, looking for fish to eat so they wouldn't find themselves in a similar situation as before. This concludes today's part of the story. See you next time. Issei felt a bit uncomfortable due to the stares he and his little dog were receiving from people around them. It was unusual to see a young man who looked like a model or a movie star walking alongside such a cute puppy.